Facebook is not working. So up next is 11C, Dykes request from decision report, Councillor Scott McLean.
Yeah, through you, Deputy, I guess I had some residents quite concerned here back, actually, the last couple of weeks. The high tides of March 11th, in the rain event, the dike over off Highway 14 next to the St. Croix River breached, which is concerning because it could happen again, right? So, and if it was to fail completely, it would basically flood everything over there, and that's a really busy road, Route 14. So, as you can see with the pictures, if you scroll down through, they're not my pictures; they were submitted by a resident of mine. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of in the province's hands, but I just want to bring it to council and put it on the record that this picture here is actually the floods of July 22nd, 2023 in Scotch Village. That's the dike and the main road, Highway 236. And there's about 3 feet of water there, so over top of the road. And that's in Mattaway at the Mattaway Bridge during that same event back in March 11th. And this is the picture of the dike breaching on the St. Croix River. And this is in Scotch Village here too on March 11th. Mattaway again. I just want to bring attention to it. I checked with the Department of Agriculture and they're not actually doing any dike maintenance on this side, more so over on the Falmouth side this year. So I think there should be some maintenance done. But I have a motion here. I'm open to the will of council, whatever. What does council think? Or
I got a question. Have you reached out to your MLA where it's provincial?
I actually, or
In
sorry,
response back?
I haven't yet, through you, Deputy, but I was going to put a motion forward just to write a letter, just to bring awareness to it. So.
Councillor Yanish?
No,
Or Councillor
Ivy was next.
Ivy?
Just I'd encourage Councillor McLean to proceed as he deems appropriate here with us around the table. But I'll say this is that this, as we find out with most flood events, is not new. They've, as you know, the museum has the markings on the corner of the wall down there where they show the height of the tide at different times, and it's certainly a significant concern. And I know that in the period of time that we've been around this table here, that we've had a meeting, I think, where the mayor, maybe, I'm not sure, CAO along down doing sandbags at the museum, and that there's been, so this isn't new, but somehow as it relates to dikes and berms here, we've let this rest with the province and or the Department of Agriculture to do as they see fit, but it's not enough, because it's the land of our residents that's overflowing and flooding because the dikes and the berms haven't been kept up. And it's not just what you're seeing in Avondale, as we all know, but don't let it be me that's trying to educate on this. It's that we're seeing this, throughout the region and in probably everybody's districts, and whether it's river flow or ocean flow or lake/river, whatever it is. We, for the land that sits within our jurisdiction, need to be taking, I think, a more aggressive stance on this. This may start with a letter, but the dikes are necessary even inside the lake from that inland flood risk that exists. And I encourage us to go back to what I happened on by happenstance was the Windsor Municipal Climate Action Plan and its risk identification of both tidal and inland flooding at risk. And that land is at risk downtown and throughout West Hants, from as we've seen in the last several years. So yes, in this case on tidal for sure, but it's more than just there. It's further to reach, and we should get much more aggressive with that.
Councillor Yanish?
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I would support Councillor McLean's initiative. But I would suggest that we consider adding the folks at Transcoastal Adaptations at St. Mary's University to the list of recipients, because they are working hand in hand with the province on a project to remove many of those dikes that we're talking about around the Manaway Highway 14 area. And in fact, they received a grant of well over $1 million to have the dikes breached and to create new wetlands. So I think in that area. So I think it's very important that they be included in any communication and to see what solutions they have, especially in the short term.
Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Deputy, to all council. Yeah, if that's their plan to pull the dikes out, let it go free flow, but I don't know how they're going to protect the highway infrastructure. That's the concern I have, but in the short term, I guess that if something did happen, so.
You got a motion you'd like to make, Scott?
Yes, I do here. What was just one? Yeah, through you, Deputy, I'll put a motion on the floor here. So move council to direct CAO to direct staff to write a letter to Nova Scotia Public Works, the West Hants MLA, Nova Scotia Department of Agriculture, and the Premier of Nova Scotia, and the Transcoastal Adaptation Group to perform maintenance on the dikes on the St. Croix River beside Highway 14 and on the Kennequok River off Route 236 in Scotch Village and the Herbert River in Mattaway.
Moved by Councillor McLean, second by Secretary Kenny. Any questions on the motion? Questions been called? Motion passed. Thank you very much. Up next is Deer Population Information Report. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. So I put this small report together based on a couple of calls from residents in Falmouth having to do with the large deer population. It was about 15 years ago. There wasn't the population of deer. It was one of those things you saw deer once a day, maybe, or once a week. Now you see herds of deer going through the neighborhoods in Falmouth. Part of the problem is there's lots of fields. It's a lot of farmland and there's woods next to it. So it's ideal habitat for deer. They're protected because you can't hunt in residential areas. And they've become a nuisance to a lot of people. A lot of people love the deer. Some people are probably feeding them. So the reason I bring it here today is to see if any other districts are having this problem and to get it recorded so that all the residents have the same information. I'm curious as if there's anything the municipality can do, any tricks the enforcement officer might have, or anything that the CAO knows of that might have been done in other municipalities or other districts. So just open the floor and see if there's any conversation around this.
Councillor Mark Quinn.
Yeah, through you, Deputy Councillor Smith, there was a bylaw in the town of Truro to be able to take care of nuisance deer. I know that. I think it was by bow hunting or something, but if I remember correctly, and it was pretty successful too.
So you're missing a few pieces, but yes, all by itself, you're right, but there's a little bit more around it. They have a deer management program for which at certain times under proper authorization, So anyway, yeah, churro is, I guess, has received quite a bit of attention in the last 10 years even, and they have a full-fledged management program. So, we can certainly kind of dig into that a little bit. I think maybe if there's an appetite, we could maybe consider some educational pieces. I know in Truro, they kind of got into the enforcement piece, trying to educate the residents not to feed and to how to, make their properties a bit more resistant or resilient to deer population. But, some folks feed and they encourage. So maybe we could start with a bit of an education piece, share some best practices and just kind of float it out there. But if there's specific direction, that we would create a program or a management program, then that's a whole other thing, quite frankly, with resources and consequences. We won't put Councillor McLean in charge of this file. But anyway, so if that's where council wants to lean, we can maybe create some education pieces and do social media kind of blitz, maybe in the newsletter, maybe a feature newsletter, your worship. Do you have a lot of influence on that publication? Maybe that's something we can kind of tackle from that angle, unless you're looking for something more direct. But typically, no, it's not our jurisdiction per se, to move them, chase them around without a management program. And I don't think that we were able to reach out to DNR prior to the meeting, or maybe we did. Sarah was moving there. Thank you. So we were going to try to reach out to those folks to see what their kind of common response is. Thanks, Sarah.
Through you, Chair, our bylaw enforcement officers did reach out to Department of Natural Resources for a constable with them to respond to kind of this request. We haven't heard back from them yet, but we expect to bring some information back to council once we hear back from them on the programs that are available through their department.
I want to do a short video, kind of my house. There's a dozen in the front, 7 in the back, 3 on the side, and 2 on the other side. Any given time.
Stop feeding.
I'm not feeding them. There's nothing. It's like Sahara Desert at my place. They're still coming.
So does that require a motion to have the staff educate the residents, or is that just something that's going to happen through a newsletter? Or?
Well, maybe you could ask for an information report with options from staff, starting with education through to enforcement, something like that. We probably wouldn't come through with a full-fledged deer management program. We'd probably say, this is what we heard from DNR, and kind of give you a better sense, and then decide where you want to go from there. If
Okay,
you wanted to request an information report, that would probably do the trick.
sure. Okay, I move that staff provide an information report on deer management. And we'll give them a couple of months.
Yes, that would be appreciative. Yep.
Yeah.
If you could,
Okay.
say June at the latest.
Okay, due for the June committee of the whole. And that should
Second.
do it. Thank you.
Moved by Councillor Smith, second by Councillor Sherman. Any questions on the motion? Question's been called. Councillor McLean, so you got 2 months to write a report, buddy. Councillor Ivey. Motion passed. Up next is 2024 Provincial Representative Volunteer Recommendation Report, Director Kehoe.
Before you have a recommendation report, with the recommendation of Betty Cox for the 2024 Provincial Representative Volunteer for West Hants Regional Municipality, who was selected through the online voting process. And it's just important to note that all the individuals that were nominated through the community nomination process will be recognized at our volunteer banquet in September as well. There's a recommendation.
I'd like to read the recommendation, Councillor or Francis.
Committee of the Whole recommends that council approves the nomination of Betty Cox for the 2024 Provincial Representative Volunteer Award for the West Hants Regional Municipality.
Moved by Councillor Francis, seconded by Councillor Murley. Question's been called. Motion passed. Thank you very much. Up next is MFC 2024 Spring Debenture Recommendation Report, Director Rochon.
Thank you, Your Worship. So as mentioned at our previous month's meetings, announced on February 26th, that spring call for debentures, that is scheduled to have a deadline of April 25th. Council approved the temporary borrowing resolutions for these debentures on March 26, 2024. Municipal finance offers favorable lending rates to municipalities for capital projects. Necessary requirements to access that borrowing is that we have an approved temporary borrowing resolution by the Minister of Housing and Municipal Affairs, as well as that the project is complete and we have a council approved pre-resolution document. So as we have approved our temporary borrowing resolutions and currently they're with Department of Municipal Affairs and Housing, the next step would be to approve our pre-resolution documents so that we can meet our submission deadline of April 25th. I'm happy to answer any questions within the report.
Any questions for Director Rochon? Councilor Harvey?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Through you to Director Roshan. Carly, if I could, some of the items that we have on the list here are relatively small relative to most of what we deal with on a budget basis overall period, like the fire equipment that we have listed here. There's, much smaller numbers are in the $7,000 to $20,000 range. I'm just curious about us using debt for such small numbers. Is that the best way for us to go with those kind of items? Or do we have a policy that there's a threshold by which we're willing to fund by use of debt versus just paying for an item and being done with it?
So through your worship, as part of the approval process, it was identified in the capital budget as funded through long-term borrowing. So there has been allocations within the operating budget. Some of them have been in the operating budget since 22-23. So those would have already been accounted for, which is why it reduces the amount of borrowing that we're going forward in. Now, that being said, of course, council, if we wish to fund it differently as one of the options, you would just have to indicate how you want it funded. So we would have to either incorporate it into the upcoming budget to clear the internal loan, or we would have to fund it through another reserve. Based on where council approved the funding when we prepared the capital budget, this is the funding course that I have received direction on.
Thank you. So I appreciate and understand that. And I take it from that as we go into this year's budget, as we're approving items, that when we see items that may be, I'll call them smaller on the normal scale of things, for lack of better identification by way of numbers, that we may consider at that point in time not to have them done through debt, but done through a capital or an operating reserve account to clear the. Thank you.
Any more questions for Carly on this one? Councilor Francis?
Oh, Mayor. I was going to read the motions.
That's good.
The mayor and municipal clerk to sign the resolution for pre-approval of debenture issuance subject to interest rate confirmation not to exceed 6.5% to enable West Hants Regional Municipality to issue a 5-year debenture of $33,605 for the purchase of fire equipment.
Moved by Councilor Francis. Second by Councilor Sherman. Any questions on the motion? Question's been called. Motion passed. Thank you very much. Up next is water storage tank.
There's two more.
Oh, okay, go for it.
Council approves the mayor and municipal clerk to sign the resolution for pre-approval of debenture issuance, subject to interest rate confirmation not to exceed 6.5% to enable West Hants Regional Municipality to issue a 15-year debenture of $789,586 for the roof at Brooklyn Fire Department Station 1 and the purchase of a dump truck with salt and plow.
Moved by the Councilor Francis. Second by Councilor Sherman. Any questions on the motion? Question been called. All those, well, throw it up, I guess. Motion passed. Thank you very much. Councilor Francis.
Committee of the Whole recommends that council approve the mayor and municipal clerk to sign the resolution for pre-approval of debenture issuance, subject to interest rate confirmation not to exceed 6.5% to enable West Hants Regional Municipality to issue a 10-year debenture of $228,240 for the paving of the rear parking lot, a Hantsport Fire Department, and the purchase of sidewalk machine with a flail mower.
Moved by Councilor Francis, second by Councilor Murley. Any questions on the motion? Question has been called. Motion passed. Thank you very much. Up next, water storage tank construction recommendation report, Director Richard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also have our project engineer, Erin Amiro, with us tonight. She can assist me with answering any questions you may have. So we do have 5 reports. So we'll start the first one with the construction of the Windsor water storage tank. In April 2021, the additional water storage capacity project was deemed necessary through consultation with CBCL as part of a future needs assessment for the utility. As directed by council in October of 2021, CBCL was awarded the engineering and design work for the Windsor water storage expansion tank. Design to date has been an iterative process and included reservoir sitting analysis, topographic survey, geotechnical investigation, preliminary and detailed design, along with preparation of the tender documents. So it was issued for tender on the Nova Scotia procurement site on February 2nd, 2024, and the tender closed on March 14th. The storage tank is the first main step in helping to bring the entire system up to current regulations. The additional storage will benefit the Windsor and West Hants water utilities, with servicing Falmouth when the new interconnection is complete. Provincial funding has been approved under the Municipal Capital Growth Program. It's in the amount of $3,074,208, or up to 50% of the total project cost to the maximum approved amount. So we did receive 4 tender submissions. Dexter Construction was the low compliant bidder. So next steps, upon approval by council, staff will award the construction of the Windsor storage tank to Dexter, so they can proceed with finalized planning of the construction phase. It is expected that the construction will start in May and finish approximately in February 2025. So they're projecting about 40 weeks construction. So the financial does show we're over budget. However, by my calculations with the funding, we are in the black. We budgeted approximately 3.2 million. With the funding projections, we're coming in at about 2.9 million. So this project is, by my calculations, under our approved budget with the provincial funding. So that's the report. Happy to answer any questions, council.
Questions for Todd? Councilor Harvey?
Thank you, Chair. So just to start with, how are you getting us to the 2.9 that we're coming in at with a budget value of 3.2? We've got a tender price of 5.5. Are you taking 100% of the provincial funding, which is only up to 50% of the cost, off that number? Is that what we're doing to get to that?
So I'm projecting the full amount of funding, which is the amount of $3,074,208. So if we take that off the full tendered amount, that will bring us in overall under budget.
But that's for 50% of the total, I'm assuming, contracted cost, or am I missing the math that you're taking that off of?
That would be the total of the $5,777,363.56. So, half of that.
Gotcha. So that's not 3 million. You're taking off 3 million to get down to the 2.9, am I right?
Yeah, I rounded up. It's $2,888,682. I just rounded
Okay,
it to
I won't get
2.9.
caught up on the math. I just, when you
I
said that,
just highlighted that by
Yep.
my calculations, we are under budget for what we had in the capital. So
thank you. So a couple of questions if I could. The original quote at 3.2, are we still in with the same size tank that we were talking about when this came to council back in 21?
So I think we did update council. So originally with the preliminary design, we were speccing a smaller tank. Once we got into the detailed design, along with all the development that's crossing our desk, we took another look, projected about 4% growth. And so the new tank size is 5,472 cubic meters, or approximately 5.5 million liters. So
Okay, so that's a 4% growth that we're forecasting now?
that was, yeah, based on the growth capacity, yes.
4%. That's quite a jump up from the initial, I think that was at 2.5. So that's significant change in our growth factor, right? Okay. The original proposal, or what we'd originally reviewed, had 30% of the cost of the project coming through the depreciation reserve account and 70% through long-term debt. It's my understanding now that this is now looking to be 100% long-term debt. Is that correct? Are we?
I would have to defer that to our Director of Finance.
Okay.
So through your worship, through the capital budget in 23-24, this project was allocated to be funded through long-term debt. It was not to be funded through depreciation funds. And in the upcoming budget is also to remain through long-term debt. However, of course, the percentage of long-term debt will change now because of the municipal capital growth program. So originally we were through the utility would be funding 3.2 million. However, the borrowing amount has been lowered.
Down to about 2.9. Is it just a round number? That's, yeah. Okay, so thank you for that. So the reason for the shift from using the depreciation account to 100% long-term debt, and I realize you're saying that that was through last year's budget, that's when that happened, but why did we come off using depreciation funds as I believe we were originally given on this?
So through your worship, in the 2023-24 capital budget that would have been presented last April, it was long-term debt presented. So the plan for it hasn't changed that I'm aware of, unless you're speaking to prior years, which might have been the design, in which case we funded the design through depreciation and not the overall capital work of it.
Okay, thank you. And I stand to be corrected on that. I'll go back and check, and if I'll let you know either way that I'm probably wrong on that. So the other question I have is we've got built into so we did the construction quote, but we have built into this now an additional two additional costs. One is related to geotech and consulting fees, which we've already undertaken as part of this part of the project. So those look like they're being added on to our bid price from the tender. Can you tell me, because I think we did geotechnical at the front end of this, we're paying for more geotechnical work as part of this process? Sorry, Chair, through you.
Through you. Geotech is required for any construction project during the project. So that would be additional fees. So it's on top of all of the geotechnical that's been done to date. So there'll be geotechnical testing, compaction testing, concrete testing as the project goes on.
Okay, thank you. And is that the 165? Up there, it's additional cost for contact administration and management.
The 165 is for geotech, and that's within that 165. So that's for the contract administration and management with CBCL, so that they can be consulted as things are happening during the project. If we need to look for advice, different materials, that sort of thing.
Thank you.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. So this is funded through the water utility.
Yes, so through your worship, this is a water utility project, so it's funded through the utility. Unlike the process that municipal council has with budgeting the debt servicing, once the capital project has been approved, utility will not allow that. So it has to be completed before it shows up usually within the year that it's budgeted for.
Any idea how this will affect water rates?
So this has actually already been accounted for in the water rate study. So if you look in the, I can't remember which table it is, so I do apologize. There's reference to a $6 million capital works project in 2023-24. And there's a corresponding outside funding source of 3 million, because at that time we were estimating that. So we actually got more than what we were estimating there as well.
So we've already seen the increases for this.
So it's already within the proposed study.
Right, okay. And just for the public's information, where's the tank located?
So for the public's information, Burgess Road at the top of Tongue Hill. If you go down Burgess, there's the old apple orchard that used to be owned by Mason's Apples. That was the piece of property that was purchased for this water tank. So it'll be sitting on the higher elevation of that parcel of land.
Yeah, and this will allow the water to like gravity flow out to all of the residences?
Yes, so great question. And that's why we had only several, very limited points where we can actually put the tank, because we needed gravity flow in, gravity flow out. We call it needed to be at a certain hydraulic grade line for that to work. So we nailed it with this piece of property. It'll allow that tank to fill and empty through gravity.
Yeah, so will there be enough pressure to push the water over to Falmouth as well?
Yes, absolutely. It was actually, not a fluke, but the hydraulic grade lines between the Windsor and the Falmouth systems actually complement each other quite well. So no issues that. And we did do that research on the front end for the interconnection pre-design to determine if the hydraulics would work between the two systems, and it will.
And just for scale, compared to the Falmouth water tank, how is it a lot larger or same size?
Much larger, probably, again, just a ballpark number. It's probably at least double the size of the Falmouth tank.
Okay,
Yeah, this is a fairly large tank. So.
okay, thank you.
Counselor Yanish? Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
All right.
I'm patient.
You're too close to me.
Yeah, thanks, Deputy Mayor. The question for Director Richard. Why is it that sometimes in the budgets, we see a variance, budget line with a variance, and sometimes we don't?
Oh, so I guess you're related to, and maybe our Director of Finance could speak to that. It's just showing the difference in our budget, I guess.
So if you're speaking to the table within the report that's showing the red number up on the screen right now, is that what you're referring to?
Well, I'm referring to, through you, Chair, I'm referring to the potential cost overruns that are included in a budget line that says variance.
All right. So within the table that's before you, the 2023-24 budget value is what's set at capital budget time, which usually, and I'll refer to Director Richard because I wasn't here during the 2023-24 budget, but typically those are based on a Class D estimate. So as we get design work coming back, usually they are able to provide us with a higher level estimate. And then, of course, we go to construction tender and we get our tender back. So again, those numbers can fluctuate. We've seen over the last couple of years due to construction costs, materials, labor, all of those things are increasing. So I would refer to Director Richard if he has anything to add, but that's usually what accounts for budget variance to what we're seeing in approved tenders.
Yeah, there's not much more I can add. That was, she nailed it as far as the response. The only thing I would add is, market conditions are very volatile, as we all know. We certainly don't know, as we'll see in future reports that we're going to talk about, just the volatile the market conditions, not having many bidders. We were very fortunate. We had 4 bidders on this one, and the low bidder came in over budget of what we were actually projecting. So we were projecting a bit more, but fortunate that this one actually came in under our estimated budget amount. So it's just the volatility. Yeah.
Aaron?
That answered one of my questions. So this, I'm glad that we got 4 submissions. That gives you a good comparison of price. And, if you only had one, you'd question, is it a true reflection? But so that's a good point. So this will meet our future fire flow needs. It'll bring us up to regulation, current standards and regulations.
Yeah, through you, Chair. Yes, so this will, we are at a deficit for the storage capacity identified through the AWWA standards. So this will allow us to meet that and allow us to meet with our interconnection. Once that's done and approved, allow us to meet that through both systems, an interconnected distribution system between Windsor and Falmouth. So we'll, like I said, it will complement both utilities.
So future capacity as well.
Absolutely.
So
And not just, and if I could, through your worship, through you, Chair, this will allow us to, because, our systems are getting older. We have a water treatment plant in Windsor that's, approaching 30 years old. We do need to do some major maintenance. So taking things offline, having that extra storage capacity, will increase the redundancy, the resiliency when we do have these issues, these process upsets, mechanical failures, and even water main breaks. So it just, it'll, the resiliency of our system will be much stronger having this system capacity and additional storage. So
yeah, that was going to be my next point, but thank you for reading my mind, I guess. So benefits all of our utilities, our water utilities, with the exception of Hants. So 3 Mile Plains, Wentworth, Windsor, and Falmouth in the overall. So
correct.
yeah,
Yes.
perfect. All right.
Councilor Hart?
Yeah, through you, Chair, 2 questions. How close are we getting to our withdrawal permit for that system? Percentage.
So Windsor is, we have a fair bit of room on the Windsor side with their water withdrawal. And having the additional storage tank will allow us to smooth out those peak demands. So we won't have the, the peaks. So,
Our withdrawal permit for that water supply though, like.
For the Mill Lakes water supply, yeah, we have a fair bit of room on the water withdrawal permit.
Okay. And the second question was, do we ever include the management of the project as part of the design? Because I remember some designs coming through and we had a management portion of it as part of the design.
So like our project engineer stated, there is some project engineering fees built into the 165. So having, CBCL, to help assist us managing the process, the tank piece, the civil and the pipe. So there's a fair bit of, that goes on with this tank. So that is actually built into this, the 165,
Yes.
having that project engineering fees.
No, but I mean, the original design work, it was 180,000, I believe, to design this tank.
Through your worship, I apologize, Councillor Hart. I don't have that number right off the top of my head to roll off the tongue. But I do know that sometimes when we approve or go to tender for design, we can put in there that there's design management after the fact. It's very different in this case as we're approving the management after. So it wasn't included in that original design tender.
I do remember some projects and we included the management in some of the projects.
And sometimes it is set up that way. Same as construction can sometimes be design build. So it really depends on the tender and the project. So in this case, the design was approved separately from the project management.
Okay.
Councilor Sherman?
Just one quick question. With the higher value projects, with the contingency at 10%, do we need to stay at the 10% as like these larger projects that are 5-6 million, or could that be lowered a little? Just asking for.
Yeah, so we will change that percentage based on the complexity of the project. In this case, there's some geotechnical component that may, so we picked the 10%, and we did discuss that with CBCL. They thought that was a fair number. So usually the higher complexity projects, we may build a higher contingency in there. Some of the more common projects that we do, like, street reconstruction, water main or sewer, we may not need the 10% because and we do a lot of that, inspection services and work in-house. So we have the capability. For this project, there's a bit of a complexity with the geotech and just the size of the tank sitting on that site. We certainly want to get it right. So there's more or less concrete on the base slab. We have that 10%. We feel that's a comfortable amount.
There is a recommendation. If somebody wants to read it. Matt?
Yep, I'll do it. Council approve awarding the construction tender for the Windsor Water Storage Tank as identified in the 2023-2024 capital budget to Dexter Construction for the tender cost of $4,886,100 plus applicable taxes.
Moved by the mayor, second by Councilor Murley. Any questions on the motion? Question's been called. Motion passed. I think it's part two.
Council also approve a 10% contingency of $488,610 contract administration and management and geotechnical and concrete testing for an estimated cost of $165,000 for a total budgeted projected project cost of $5,539,710 plus applicable taxes.
Moved by the mayor, second by Councilor Murley. Questions on the motion? Question's been called. Motion passed, one against. Thank you very much. Up next is some vacancies from the room.
You might as well stay. You might get some more questions. Yeah.
Up next is Basant to King Connection Recommendation Report, Director Richard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is looking at recommendation report, looking for staff to proceed with detailed design, looking for council's blessing. So in 2021, the Windsor Intersection Infrastructure Needs Assessment Study was done by WSB, and they recommended extending Basant Drive and making a connection to King Street. Design Point submitted a proposal in August of 2023 to do the engineering and surveying services for the functional design of the extension and connection. So the original objective for Design Point was to provide options for the proposed alignment. It was determined there would be multiple obstacles to design around, including a watercourse, wetlands, property acquisition, and the railway line. Preliminary options needed to be also considered vertical and horizontal alignment of Basant Drive and King Street with the intersection spacing, site distances, and environmental impacts. The plan is that we will be done in two phases. The first phase we call the extension would extend Basant Drive from essentially the Avonview driveway through to the end of the parcel, which is approximately 255 meters. And the second phase, we're calling the connection, would be to extend Basant Drive to connect to King Street. Through this process, many different options were explored. After multiple design iterations, option 4, we call it, was established. This option, as you can see in the sketch, proposed alignment, this one. This option appears to be the most efficient alignment to overcome the numerous challenges in such a small area. It also includes an urban cross-section to allow for a concrete sidewalk. So with, the consultant did prepare a high-level Class D estimate for construction. So phase one will be the responsible of the developer as per a development agreement. Phase two, which we call the connection, is the Class D estimate is $1,269,000. So that's the estimate for construction. So upon approval of council, staff will direct Design Point to move forward with the detailed design for option 4 and potentially be ready for tender for construction by spring 2025. Now that's very ideal. Everything would have to fall in place to be ready for a construction of the spring of 2025. Most likely, it would be a 2026 construction. The design will be an urban street complete with curb and gutter, concrete sidewalk, sanitary sewer, storm system, and new water main. So that is a high level of the report. Be happy to answer any questions.
Councilor Hart.
Was ready. Through you, Chair. So in this report, it mentions property acquisition, but we were told when we were talking about this prior, that there would be no property that we would have to purchase. It was, we owned everything, the right of way right out through there. Can you explain that?
Yeah, sure. So if we could just go back to that sketch. So like we said in the report, there was many design iterations. There's a few challenges here. One of the challenges is the wetland. We certainly can cross the wetland, not ideal, but there's certainly engineering in place that we can do that. But the one obstacle, again, we could, but we didn't want to cross the water course twice. So we did have to push the road a bit. One to make the curvature meet our design engineering specifications, but it did push it out a little bit that we are encroaching on 2 pieces of property. One is actually going to be discussed through a development agreement process. And the second piece is, will be in consultation with another property owner. But it's not a large area, but it certainly is encroaching on private property. So it's just the process to answer the question. We thought we'd be okay, but the water course did kind of push it a bit, that we were encroaching a bit more than we expected to.
Councilor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. So would the road be built all in one piece? Like you talked about 2 different sections?
So through you, Chair. So there is, potential discussions with the proposed developer. If he would like to do that in conjunction with us, or if he would like to go on his own. Certainly, we're willing to work with those parties, working out the details as we go. But so that is a potential. But there is a development agreement that what their requirements are by a certain time. But staff have had a fair bit of discussions with the developer and seeing where he's at. So I think we're in a good place.
So
To have the potential road to be done all at once, or our piece, and then the second piece comes after.
So the development agreement, what does that say? It has to be done by?
I don't want to misspeak.
Through you, Chair. The development agreement that was presented, partially presented at the last council meeting, mentioned a 2030 timeline. We have gone back based on council's discussions and priorities to negotiate that down. We're still in legal review on that timeline and negotiating that with the developer, but we're hoping that it'll be more appealing to council when we bring it back to the public hearing at the April council meeting to meet kind of the standards that Todd's explaining for the other connection.
So if council's not happy with the new date, what's making us build this road? Because we wouldn't have a road all the way through. We'd only have the connection piece.
Yes. So again, I kind of talked on the discussion, it would be an ideal schedule if we were prepared to be constructing, even starting construction by 2025. Most likely we'll be in a position to start construction in 2026. to be fully completed by approximately 2027. So the timing does work. That's why we kind of, picked the 2027 date. By all accounts, that's most likely if we get council direction to proceed with detailed design, tender documents and everything that comes with that, and then ready to tender it. Most likely,
So
this road wouldn't be ready till approximately 2027.
That's 3 years.
Mhm.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
It's only like 500 meters of road.
Yes, certainly, we could push, but if we start pushing, as you'll see in other reports, just timing, pushing, condensing a schedule certainly is going to come at a cost. Consultants are very busy. We're trying to push consultants to have this thing detailed design. We have a wetland across. We'll need approvals. We'll need consultation with the rail people. So there's a lot going on. It's a short section of road, but this is a complicated piece of construction here. So many approvals, some designs, some retaining walls, some crossing, and maybe even with council's direction, once we get through budget, King Street improvements may be part of this too, because that section of King Street is certainly in need of some improvements. So that may be a piece too. So there is a fair bit going on to have this connection, but certainly we could push, get something out much quicker, but that usually will come at a cost. So
What's the connection at King Street? What does that look like? Is there an extra lane there of any type?
yep. So in the conceptual design, it does show a turning lane for both the Bezant connection and the King Street piece too. So
And is it an open tender or is it one of those tenders that you ask the pre-selected companies to?
no, this would be, we could, where Design Point has started the piece, we more or less would, recommend that Design Point does the detailed design, and then it would go out on the provincial procurement site for construction. So it would be open tender.
Okay. All right, no more questions.
Councilor Ivey?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I guess just as a quick comment, my recollection is not too dissimilar to, I think, Councilor Hart's, that when we talked about this previously, it was a fairly simple process, that it wasn't complicated with wetland or railway or other property components. And maybe I'm reading it wrong, but in the order of sequence here, that things seem to be flowing. It looks like that we were on a path where watercourses, wetlands, and railway property was an issue. So perhaps a misunderstanding on my behalf. I don't know. And I say that, I guess, in the context of we're having this conversation, and it's somewhat, it's interesting if we go back to that history, which I don't want to keep on repeating, but I think it's important that I know, talking about this in Windsor Council in 2019, that the people living on this road before all this development that's taking place now, none of that was, it may have been on the drawing board with the primary developer in this area, but this wasn't the issue at the time. This was trouble with people getting in and out of there at that time, with the high school and the one way in, one way out issue concern for the people at the crossing. So this is when things were significantly scaled back and down from what we have going on there now by way of traffic concerns. And at that time, it was do something at Wentworth and Payzant, and then the thinking was mostly lights and or stop signs, or some people were even suggesting we get traffic police out there to wave the traffic through during the peak times, but also to do something on the other end, because this piece has been talked about since 2002-ish. And so that's where I guess my concern and my surprise comes with this somewhat, is that we seem again to be having the pace of development driving this conversation versus us looking at this and what makes the most sense for the region and for our residents. And in my mind, that primary driver on this is one way in, one way out, and traffic, and relieving that traffic, for which the simplest, quickest way, at least based on an estimated Class D estimate, albeit at 1.269 million, to get that road opened up. So that we're relieving pressure on the traffic that's going in and out of Payzant, whether they're going in it from Garland's Crossing or coming across it through it from Wentworth Road. And I don't want to muddy the water here too much, but I just figured, let's just get to this conversation that where council wants to sit with getting this road opened up. And I think that's perhaps the driving piece of this. I know that the motion on opening up to King Street as a formal motion only came a year ago, March-ish, I think, which is when this would have landed with you there, Director Richard. But what do we need to do to get this opened up so that we aren't opening up one side and then waiting for the other, or that we're sitting there waiting on a developer that may not move for 7 years is what's within their draft agreement. Nothing's been settled on that at this point in time. What do we do to get this moving, that we've got an open road through between King Street and Wentworth Road? Through you, Chair, to the director, if you're able with that, Todd. I didn't mean to go on so much. Either one of you. I'll let you guys pick.
Well,
There was a lot.
That's we're dealing with two different things here, the development agreement and this road extension and connection. So the art of the DA, which we're trying to negotiate now, is to get the developer to participate in building a road at the same time that we want to, not knowing exactly when you want to, or in the event that the developer is not ready at the same pace we are, that we have a mechanism that we can build the road and make sure that he's responsible in this case for his costs. So that's where we're working. And I would say, come council meeting, through the DA presentation, you'll see the schedule that we have been able to negotiate to date. Council then can say whatever it is that they want, go faster, go slower. We're trying to get both parties to land in the same spot. So it's, as we said, it's really about timing and making sure that the cost is the burden of the developer should we get there faster than they do. I don't think anybody wants to see a road half built. So that's the art of the DA, and we hope we'll have something for you at the end of the month to consider.
Okay, thank you. And I just, it's maybe as much of a bull in a china shop the way I laid out that story. But I think it's better to get that conversation out that we're clear, because we don't want to be landing here in a month's time and still wanting to have the same questions asked that I'd rather have us ask here tonight and get through everything. So this can be as tidy as it can be 4 weeks from now, that, and I can't speak for anybody else around the table here, but my thinking is we want to see that opened up in unison. And so, and so whatever it needs to be done, or however you sort that out with the developer in waiting, if we can call them that, and the, or however we get to that piece with what we need to do here, design wise and cost wise and budget wise. I think that's important.
Hurt.
Yeah, through you, Chair. This design here, what I remember it a little bit. I'm just trying to think about the cost, what this was for cost. Do you remember what this design cost us? That we had 80,
I think.
that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I'd have to check. No, I don't have that number in front of me. Sorry, we should have had that cost, but yeah. Was it 80? Okay,
Yeah.
so
So
that sounds about right.
So we're at 80,000, but we don't really have any design.
So we just looked at options. The council direction was look at is it feasible? What are the options? Conceptual plan and costing. So that's what they come back with. Certainly, the details would be the added piece. So they know where it's going. Certainly, if it's design point, it's not someone starting from scratch. A lot of the preliminary work has been done. So the detailed design would be less than if we were starting from scratch.
So 500 meters of road, and we already spent 80,000 on design, and we got to spend another 80,000 to finish the design.
Detailed design. Yeah, that's sanitary sewer, storm, sidewalk, all the things that go with that. So.
Councilor Morgan.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy. Most of my questions surrounded around schedule, and CEO touched on most of that, which we'll see at next council, which is great. But just for clarification, the 1.269 million, am I correct in saying it's just the King Street side of that extension, has nothing to do with the other half?
So there's two phases. The first phase would be the responsibility of the developer for the design and the construction. And phase two is just the piece essentially from the second parcel to King Street. So that's the 1.269 million.
And will we get through you, Deputy, sorry, will we get a price come back? Assuming we're all kind of on the same page that we want to see this done at once. So many options. I'm assuming we'll pay for it first. I have to charge it back or however we're gonna do it, but assuming we'll see a price for that as well, what it would cost either. Assuming we're gonna do it and have to.
Yes, so we've had those discussions with the developer, would he like to, designing it all at once would certainly be cheaper than him doing his piece, us doing ours, but so he's taking that under consideration. If he'd like to partner with us, he does more or less the split or whatever that is based on the meterage and yeah, but there would be probably a bit more design on our side because there is the intersection and the approaches and the wetlands and the water course crossing. His piece, the phase one is fairly straight line, not near as technical as the second phase.
So we should have some more information on that at council meeting. Is that?
So we need direction. Certainly we can't do nothing until we get approval at council in 2 weeks. So, if we get the green light at council, and if you want us to go faster, like the CAO said, we can certainly, push and have this, designed a little bit quicker. But again, everyone is busy and that may come at a cost. So.
Yeah, so really.
Yes, thank you, Deputy. I'd be prepared to make this motion. I feel quite confident after hearing staff's comments, particularly the CAO, the art of the DA, and I appreciate what staff is trying to do when you bring back that DA. Yeah, I feel pretty confident with this whole choreography that is being attempted. I will call it that. So I would move that council approves giving direction to Design Point to move forward with detailed design and competition documents and specifications for the Payzant extension to King Street Connection Phase 2 at an estimated cost of $80,000 plus applicable taxes.
Moved by Councilor Murray. Seconder.
Do we have a seconder?
I'll second.
No.
Councilor Sherman, second. Okay. So we got lights on and I'm gonna comment at the end of it myself. Councilor Sherman.
Just to be clear, because I think it was said that it was $80,000 to design the road, but that's, just to be clear, that is just phase 2, our part. It's going to cost more than 80,000 to design that complete road. Is also phase 1 that's not on that. So I just wanted to make some clarification there. That's all.
Councilor Hart.
Through Chair to the Director. Just wondering, is there going to be any more design work like for the structure for the bridge or?
So there's no plan for a bridge. Most likely be a box culvert to cross the water course there approaching King.
So that's going to be all in now. We're at 160 for that whole design for that road. And we're going to be all in, no more design work.
So that's what they're giving us for their
No
cost
more design
estimate.
work,
So
yeah.
so certainly
160,000.
you're not going to get
We're all
100% from me stating that. Certainly things may change.
No,
but
no,
that's
it
that's
must be-
their
It
estimate.
must be written in such a way that.
That's their estimate.
That's gonna, yeah.
Yeah, and that's why
160,000 complete project.
Yeah.
Design.
hopefully.
Councilor
Yeah.
Smith.
Thank you, Chair. So yeah, just to add to that question, that's only for the connection side. The 160,000, that's not for the whole thing.
Yeah, so the proposal tonight is for the detailed design of phase 2 at $80,000 plus applicable taxes.
So the extension side of it still has to be done.
Yes, and that's the responsibility of the developer to
Okay.
design and construct and replace the water main. So that's
So
all on the developer.
So could we do both? Could we do the design and build and then just bill them back?
So that's kind of what our CAO alluded to. We are having those discussions, talking to legal and working through those things if it's possible.
I mean, wouldn't that would expedite it? Instead of waiting a few months to do, phase 1 and then waiting to get the numbers and the sketches back.
Yes, certainly,
Like-
doing it as one project as a whole, certainly, yeah, would be for the benefit of both parties. If you're asking my opinion, yes.
So at what point would we know if we're going to go that route or they're going to be separate?
That's the DA. So council will see the development agreement and some of those provisions that we're working on within that draft at the end of the month. We'll see what the developer, at least in principle, has agreed to. Maybe he comes down from 2030 and has a different date. There's different pieces, but to answer your question, you should see, as far as we've been able to negotiate, anticipating council is wanting this sooner than later. We'll get you as close as we can, and you'll see that in the DA. The end of the month.
Okay, well, one of the reasons why it's so important was there's so many people that live in the crossing. You know, there has to be like over 500 people there now,
600.
right? Plus the high school, plus the hospital. Like if we ever have a, catastrophe happen and we have minutes wasted going all the way around, it's going to look really bad when we have the capability of putting a road in a year. Like it's only 500 meters. It doesn't take that long to do. They build roads everywhere. They build, it's nothing new. It can happen quickly. But to think that it's going to take 3 more years to get the road in, it's unacceptable.
Councilor
Thank you. I was planning on underlining the timing matter, and only from the standpoint of that the simplicity of getting the road through. If the developer, for any reason, didn't show up, it doesn't matter. Like getting that road through is the right thing. And ideally, we'd be doing it on our own without the developer. They're ready to do a development agreement to build the units that he wants to build and so on, that we would have already had a movement here, a motion here. I think to your credit, Bob, you brought discussion of this forward back in 2020, 2021, and then we backed up a bit and so we've gone around this loop, but it's time for us to get that road built or that connection made. And that solves a whole lot of problems. That solves a whole lot of things that we have on our plate here, possibly cost wise and otherwise. And so whatever can be done to accelerate that timing, I'm supportive of it. And I was only going to start saying this because what's in your report here, Director Chardon is something that looks us out in the 26, 27 timeframe, which in my mind, that seems like forever from now. 3 years can pass pretty darn quickly, but it seems like forever. And so is to try and get that done sooner than then. That's where my head's at.
Councilor Sherman.
Thank you. Through you, Deputy Mayor. I think the thing we need to look at is this piece tonight. And I think a lot of these answers are going to be answered next week when we see the development agreement. And that at that point, we'll be better informed to make the decision how fast we want to move forward, who pays for that. But I think without seeing a development agreement, we're kind of, these same questions are going to be asked next month or at the end of this month at the council meeting. So I think it's important that we move forward. But I also think it's equally as important that we wait to see what's on the development agreement, because what's on there may be exactly what we want. So I think it's important that we wait till we see what's on that to make the decision on whether we want to go forward with phase 1 on our own and charge it back somehow. But I think we do need to wait to see the DA next council meeting.
Councilor White.
Yeah, through you, Deputy, to all council, I just want to remind everybody that what happened last spring there with the wildfires, and then some of the subdivisions only had one way in, one way out. And this is not that this is the exact same, but it's a simple, there's one way in, one way out. That's why I think we should have the road expedited if that was the need.
I'll second it.
Yeah. So I'm going to just throw my 2 cents in here. So looking at the recommendations on the report 3 tonight, quick math, $7 million. We haven't even had budget. We're going to have a list, and frankly, we haven't seen a list. What's on the list? We got to start making decisions, right? That makes sense. And we haven't seen a list of what we got to pick off. So I'd be inclined to send all 3 of these back to budget, bring it back. Then you can pick and choose what you want to do. But that's my thoughts. Question's been called. The motion, where's it? Yeah. Fire that up there first.
I don't think anyone put this on the board.
Yeah.
I find it, it's not Mark that made one.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah.
I think John second.
John second the second.
That's where.
Yeah.
Yeah. Motion passed. On to the next one. It's Passant Wentworth tender for construction recommendation report. Director WHRM.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is, talking about timing. We're close to 3 years here on on this roundabout project. So the intersection of Bazant Drive and Wentworth Road has proven to be extremely busy over the years, especially during peak times. Solutions have been researched, studied, and discussed extensively, and experts agree that the best solution from an engineering perspective, traffic engineer perspective, it needs to provide efficiency, longevity, sustainability, and be the most suitable for the area. So in August of 2021, an intersection infrastructure needs assessment for this proposed project was completed by WSP. It was recommended that plans be prepared to upgrade this intersection to a roundabout. In September of 2021, Public Works requested proposals from pre-qualified engineering consultants to support this project from design through final construction. In January of 2023, Design Point presented at Committee of the Whole proposed traffic circle presentation. The municipality is focused on providing multiple long-term solutions for the residents of West Hants Regional Municipality. A roundabout at the Bazant Wentworth intersection will provide this solution with many benefits, including improved safety, reduced delay, reduced environmental impacts, improved aesthetics, network considerations, and ability to function during power outages. It also considers the intersection at Centennial Drive. So essentially, it looks at two intersections within one project. The construction tender was issued on the Nova Scotia procurement website on March 8th, 2024, and the tender closed on April 4th. Unfortunately, only one bid was received, and that bid came in at $4,274,980. So there was a water main component of this tender, and it should be noted that this water main will need to be replaced at some point in the future, regardless of the type of intersection improvement. The Dexter amount for the water main portion was $620,855 and was substantially over our originally budget estimated amount of $430,000. It is expected that a portion of this work will be in this construction season if approved. There is a lot of Nova Scotia Power and Bell work to be completed, and Dexter is well versed to coordinate with them to provide the best schedule and coordinate of this project. So we are expecting some work to be carried out this season, but the projected will be over two construction seasons. So like I said, it is unfortunate that we only received one bid, and it is substantially over our estimated budget. Some of the discussions or questions may be, why don't we just consider a set of traffic lights? This certainly could be done. However, at most likely a lower project cost. However, it does not follow with what the traffic engineers and experts are telling us what would work for the longevity of this intersections. And we have been through this. I've been through this on many occasions, and not certainly, it's not my spot to give suggestions, but there has been big projects that have been undertaken between Windsor and West Hants that really haven't looked at the longer term costs. A couple that come to my mind are Windsor building a water treatment plant and Falmouth building a water treatment plant. And here we are, 15, 20 years later, interconnecting these two systems because, just because capacity and just capability of one individual plant, where one could have been built overall for much cheaper in operations. So the operations of it. Others are, we're talking a lot about stormwater. Back in probably 2010, when we started talking sewage treatment for the Windsor sewage treatment plant. I know it was discussed at Windsor Council of, potentially source, separating the stormwater from the sanitary. But at that time, it's just the cost was quite large. But if you look at fast forward, here we are now, the cost have really, increased. So it's certainly not going to be any cheaper. So I just, kind of send that to council, looking at the longevity and the long-term costs. But again, very unfortunate that only one bid is received, so not much to compare it to. So it is over budget by a substantially amount, as you can see in the what's on the screen. A couple alternatives that council may want to consider. Council may choose to wait until budget deliberations as suggested by the CAO in the report, or council may direct staff to proceed with a traffic signalized intersection, but that would require another design for that type of process. But that's just a few highlights of the report. Between Aaron and I, happy to answer any of your questions.
Councilor Hart.
Yep, through you, Chair. I don't know why I never thought of this before, but it was brought to my attention that roundabouts are faster, but if we're going to send them through a roundabout, where are they going on either direction? They're going to a set of lights. So.
Yes, so we have looked at that. And based on the traffic survey, the intersection at O'Brien and Wentworth, there's not near as much traffic as there is further down. And there is discussions with the province. They do plan on at some point upgrading the Cole Drive in Wentworth, which is a signalized intersection, to a roundabout. So that is in the future projections of that intersection to be a roundabout. So it essentially be, there's a roundabout here at Morrison, the bottom of Morrison, a roundabout at Cole, and another roundabout. So we did look at that scenario.
Yep.
Councilor McLean.
Thank you, Deputy, through you to Director of Public Works. How come there wasn't any other bidders like the Bricons and the Miller Group?
We were quite surprised that even at the bidding meeting, the site meeting, we only had Dexter show up. There was some questions from other potential bidders, so we hopes that we were going to get some competition. I don't really have the answer, but I think it does come down to, it's a busy time. Contractors are flat out. We've heard that, contractors have booked for the next 2 years. So they're very busy, and not just contractors, but consultants it's which is, not a bad thing. We're probably in a really fortunate situation where, everyone's busy. Development is booming, but with that, certainly has its challenges. So with that, one bid for, a project that is substantially over budget. So not a good situation. So.
Okay, thanks. Another question through you, Deputy, to the Director. So if this were the pass, it potentially 2 years of construction at the busiest intersection in the municipality.
Yeah, so with that, through you, Chair, there's the utility work, the overhead utility work. So that's really not going to disrupt too much traffic. They're going to reposition poles, have that piece done. Most likely the water main piece would be done in the first year. So have a lot of the perhaps some of the property acquisition we need. Moving the rock wall needs to be relocated. Signs need to be relocated. So we thought a lot of that stuff could be done in the first year. And talking with the one bidder at the bidding meeting, they thought that was a great approach, because they said if we were trying to condense this into one construction season, most likely the bids would be even higher. So for them to do that much work in 1 year. So.
Okay, thanks.
Councilor McLean.
Thank you, Deputy. Through you to all council, just kind of having a brainwave here, but $5 million plus tax is pretty near $6 million. That's a lot of money for a roundabout, in my opinion. Just thinking that, say if we put a set of traffic lights there for $1 million, take the other 5 million and put it to on the other side to expand that road to King Street. Then, because that's really ultimately is going to alleviate all the problems if you have two entrances into the subdivision. Just an idea, but $6 million is a lot to pay for a roundabout.
Councilor Yenish.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Question for Director Richard. Has all the land been purchased that's required for this roundabout?
So one piece of land is purchased. Everything's in order. Still working just with the legal on the second piece, and the third piece is still in negotiations. So we talking to our solicitor, he feels everything's in order. We certainly have two willing partners. No issues. The third piece, there's a bit of hesitancy, but we feel we're there.
So through you, Chair, has the purchase price been included in this parcel? Has that been included in the budget?
So that was in the previous year's budget. So for the design, that was incorporated in the design piece. So.
But we haven't purchased the piece of land yet, so we don't know what it's going to cost.
Well, we did the appraisal, so we know what we're paying for those pieces of land. So based on the appraisals. I think it was all discussed in camera.
Should somebody want to sell it at that price?
Councilor Morton.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy. Kind of related back to what Councilor McLean said. But more of a question, when they studied that area and recommended the roundabout, was it studied with the intention that we were going to open the other end, or was it studied with the intention that stayed closed?
So they looked at both scenarios. They did look at opening up Bezant to King. The traffic engineering study didn't feel that would make much of a difference at the intersection of Bezant and Wentworth. And at certain points of the day, the traffic coming from 3 Mile Plains could worsen the delay time, because a lot of people are either, if you're trying to turn left at that intersection, so if someone's coming from 3 Mile Plains and wanting to go from Sobeys, and the high school is getting out, it could actually, add more traffic to that intersection during certain times of the day. So, but overall, they didn't feel that having that connection would take much pressure off of the need for either a set of traffic lights or a roundabout. So certainly would still be a failing grade if we left it as is with the connection. So having the connection certainly would help getting out one way, but it didn't do much difference. Was the kind of the wording. Again, I'm adding a bit to it in the traffic study.
Good for now, but come back to me.
Councilor.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just to say that I think what's just been shared as it relates to the questions from Councilor Yanish on land is probably the most we've heard on that in a year regarding those matters. I know maybe a few months ago, there might have been one other item that may have been covered, but that covers what I believe would have been 2 out of what was originally 4. So I don't know where number 4 disappeared to here, because that's how this conversation began, with 4 properties possibly involved. Are we only dealing with 3 now?
Correct.
Okay, so we're hearing that, I think, for the first time, just to be clear. And I don't want to, because now I'll have to go back and double check that. But I just want to say that's new, at least from where I sit. I can't speak for anybody else around the table on that.
So through you, Chair,
Yeah.
to my knowledge, it's only been 3 parcels, 3 pieces of land. So I certainly could go back, but the in-camera discussion that I brought forth was for three pieces of land.
I think we had the first one was very participatory. Second one was kind of wait and see, and now they're good to go. And the third one's a holdout because they don't like roundabouts. So, but I think at a previous council meeting in camera, feels like 2 months ago, we were given an envelope to deal with that third property owner. Our solicitor felt confident that he could bridge the gap there.
Yeah, so something's not, look, we don't need to, I don't want to take us, we don't need to go too deep down that path, but I think it's something we want to resolve by way of what we get for information around the table here so that we're all on the same page, okay? I'm certain that we started with 4 and that goes back a year ago. I could be wrong. I'll go back and double check. Again, I'm fully open to being wrong. I don't want to create any uncertainty because of that. But I just think it's important that because it goes to us and how we may decide things. But I'd like to go through, if I can, through you, Chair, to Director Richard. I just need to do a run on this math, Director Richard, if you can. I'm just because you've got 620 in for the water component. Is that included in our total, or has it been pulled out? Because I've taken the 4,274,000 from Dexter, if the water's still in, then that's showing at 620. But then it looks like we're adding on contingency of 641 for 15%. So I'm trying to get it that I'm clear on, because we're only getting to a number here of 5.1 plus tax, but and it's late and I'm tired. I'll admit that right now. I've hit my fatigue threshold tonight already.
Sure.
So can we,
So the tender price of 4,274,980, that includes the water. That's all in as far as the tender price, which would include, everything that's in the construction tender. The 15% is just the added on, again, the 15% contingency, for an overall estimated construction cost of $5,116,227.
okay, so thank you for that. Because of the breakout, was adding the water in. It appeared to be an add-on because we hadn't talked about that previously as a component of this. I think it's something new that you folks dealt with.
Yeah, and the reason we highlighted the water, because that would be paid, through the water utility, not through the street component. So we just highlight that section.
Correct. And this 620 was not included as part of the water rate review study, I don't believe. Or was it?
Not near that much. Yeah, it was included.
It was at the
that
400
section, but yeah, not near
Okay.
that much.
Thank you very much. So that's fine. So, my notes again, which open to being questioned for sure, but I show us starting a conversation at about 1.7. I think that was the meeting where Councillor Morton felt a little bit differently and thought it might have been 2 something, but we landed at 2.7 a year ago in budget when there was still to be more information coming on this, which we didn't. And then now we're up at 5.1. We've gone from an early general conversation on this initial design costing to now we've got a detailed design and we're at 5.1 12 months later, 14 months later. And that's my concern. If I didn't have a concern on roundabout to begin with, ignoring the functionality and all that goes with that, but cost wise, we're close to 3 times where we started in our first conversation.
Councillor Sherman.
Thank you. Through you, Deputy Mayor, just 3 quick questions. First of all, I'd have to agree with Councillor Ivey. I think there was 4 lots of land, and I could give you the name of the 4th, but that's for in camera. The other thing was, Todd, you had mentioned failing grade. What do you mean by failing grade? Because I read that report and nowhere does it say failing grade. It says F, which is more congested, but not a failing grade. So I'm a little confused how.
Yeah, through you, Chair. Yeah, sorry if I'm using the wrong terminology, but F, it doesn't. They do the traffic studies if you're there for, and again, I'd have to look at the traffic. If it was over 30 seconds, if you're there less than 10, it may be an A. If you're there for 15, might be a B. And then the longer you wait, the higher the letter. So I think it was over 30 some seconds. It attributes to an F. So it may not be fail, but it just doesn't meet that threshold. So it's unacceptable as far as what the movement of traffic should be.
I understand now. Thanks for that. And the other thing too is I just want to touch base on contingency fees again at 15%. I just feel it's a little bit high. I know that you like a little bit of a buffer there, so you don't have to come back to council for upgrades or for additional monies, but I do feel 15% is a bit high on the contingency as well. Just saying, like Timberson, I think would be more comfortable number for me.
I'm just, was the power, was that included in that or was that separate? The utility, where did we put that? Because that's going to be a fairly high cost. Yeah. So with that 15%, it's not just a contingency. We're allowing for the overhead utility because there's fiber optic there. There's phone. There's power. There's talking to the scoper. He said there's everything going on in that intersection. So that is going to come at a fairly high price just for relocation of overhead utilities.
All right. No, thanks.
Councillor McLean.
One more question, just last one. Through you,
Yeah.
Deputy, do we get any money from the province at all from this?
So none yet. If there's certainly a funding opportunity, we'll certainly be, trying to get that, but none that I'm aware of. Could have applied for the water tank. That might have met it, but they were looking at more, water component, sewer component. This is more of a street component. So we put that on the water tank. So for that same type of program, we certainly wouldn't have got both. So only one project at a time.
Councilor Smith?
Thank you, Chair. So the total cost is 5.3 million with non-recoverable tax. So that's what we would have to pay. 5.3. 5.335 non-recoverable tax.
That's what we're estimating that the cost would be.
Yes. So that's about 15% of our annual budget. Just for one intersection. That seems rich. Yeah. So my question actually is there any part of this design that can be used to put towards traffic lights? Or would we be starting from scratch if we opted to go for traffic lights?
So there's certainly the wetland delineation has been done. There's certainly some pieces of this that they have that information. They have the survey, the topography. So absolutely. Some of this could be used if we get direction from council to proceed of what the cost would be for a signalized intersection. That's certainly would be less than if we were starting from scratch without what we have as far as the detailed design for the roundabout. So yes, to answer your question.
Councilor McLean?
Thank you, Deputy, through you to Director of Public Works. I just got concerns there with the roundabout and the province not, I mean, we don't have anything in stone like that they would help us with the cost of this roundabout because it's their infrastructure, the hospital and the high schools are in there, and this intersection is this design is in roundabout is gonna help get, access to their infrastructure is what I'm trying to get at. So yeah, it's pretty rich. That's all I can say.
All right, I gotta fire in. I send it back to budget. I mean, unless the Eclipse left money in this West Hants that I don't know about. None was left at my house, so. Anyway. Is there a motion? Recommendation up there somewhere? Someone wants to read it? Or what's the wishes of council? Jim?
I'll read the motion to take us through process. The council approved the award of tender WHRM PW 24-03 for construction of the Payzant Drive Wentworth Road roundabout to the low compliant bidder Dexter Construction for the tendered price of $4,274,980 plus applicable taxes. And council also approves a construction contingency of 15%, $641,247, and the cost for overhead utility relocation for a total construction estimated cost of $5,116,227 plus applicable taxes.
Moved by Councilor Harvey. Seconder?
Second for discussion, just quick discussion. If we were to send this to budget at this point, would it be us? What would be the best way to do that? With the motion's been made and seconded at this point, could we lay it on the table until for further discussion at budget when we have a better idea of what the rest of our responsibilities and things that we're going to be looking at are? We don't know at this point. I find it difficult to vote for this for that reason.
So I think the date is June 3rd, as noted in the report. That's when this tender price expires. So whether it's budget deliberations and or May council meeting is kind of your deadline with respect to this tender, I would suggest. So you may want to make a motion to defer. Is that what we're doing? Defer, send, transfer? We've played with these words before with the development agreement here in March. So you may want to send it in that fashion if that's what you want to do. Gives you the opportunity to see the entire capital budget, gives you a little timing. Keep in mind, June 3rd. That's your kind of deadline.
I would then make a motion to defer until June 3rd during budget deliberations. Not during budget.
We got a motion.
I'll put that motion. And if somebody wants to make an amendment to it, go ahead.
Now we got two motions on the floor. Sure.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, perhaps Councillor Murley meant the May council meeting, which would be before the June 3rd committee, the June 3rd deadline for the tender.
We do have a motion that's seconded on the floor though, already.
But we are making a motion to defer to the May council meeting is that okay with the?
I suggest through you,
Yeah.
Deputy Mayor, I suggested that that's perhaps what you were
Yes,
intending to say.
Councillor Yanish, that would be good. And were you going to second that?
I could.
So we got two motions. Proper procedure here. So it doesn't get all screwed.
You got a motion on the floor as read, and now you have somebody that wants to move it to the May council meeting. We can move it directly to there, can we not? What do we need to do? What's the cheat sheet? Want to withdraw the first one? Sorry, withdraw the first motion. And then defer it to the May council meeting. It's the advice of the clerk.
This is going to get interesting.
Okay, let me try a friendly amendment. Instead of sending it to council, you could be specific about your time. So let's see, council, so committee of the whole recommends to council. A council approve the award. You can have an amendment there to say that committee of the whole recommend to council, yeah, I'm trying to get it to the May council meeting.
Can I,
Withdraw?
no, my question is, why are we looking to get it to the council meeting? If we're going to push it out, you want to push it out to committee of the whole? Because if the reason for pushing it out, are we able to have discussion on, let's have discussion on Lori's motion. Because it's on the floor. Am I safe in saying that? Discussion on the motion put forward by Councillor Murley is to defer to May council, which is a month and a half away. Assuming that we get budget in between now and then, but budget will take place during committee of the whole meetings. Committee of the whole is where we're at now. And I think the reason for the deferral on this is that there's some uncertainty around the table. Open conversation here, right? That there's uncertainty around the table and there needs to be more discussion on it. Do you think we'll be able to have that during the budget discussion at a committee of the whole meeting, or do you want to push it to a council meeting? And that's the reason I'm asking the question. That's why things are a little bit complicated with the two motions on the floor right now. Let's make sure if we're going to clean them up, we can withdraw both of them and start fresh if we want. And it seems to me that the last one has to get withdrawn first. If you want advice, my opinion, I'm getting nodding from the clerk. In order to tidy this up, if we want to go back to square one, withdraw the last one first.
Okay, I would concur with that. I just want to make the confirmation that regardless of what you decide in budget process for procurement reasons, this motion would have to return to council if council were to approve it within the budget, assuming we have the conversation.
Right.
So regardless of what you decide in the budget, because of procurement, this has to land here. So, but I think Councillor Ivy's on the right track, start from scratch and see where you want to land.
Councillor Murley.
In that vein, then I would withdraw my motion if it's okay with the second.
Okay. Motion withdrawn. First motion still on the floor.
In the interest of tidying things up for that purpose, I'll withdraw the first motion, which was basically reading the motion, assuming the seconder agrees. No pressure.
Seconder, agree.
Who was the seconder?
You.
No.
No, who was seconder? Merle.
I agree then.
All right.
Okay.
So somebody might wanna, Councillor, whatever your name is, Sherman.
Frank? I guess my question is going to be, it's not to make a motion, is if council feels that the project is a lot higher than what we expected, why are we so worried about getting back to the table next month? Like, you know, if it is higher and the general feeling is that we don't want to be rushed in a month to make a decision on a budget that come back at 5.1. We have one contractor vetted it or sent the quote in. Even if it's you know, the time runs out and we have to go to tender again 6 months down the road. Maybe there's 3 or 4 more contractors that bid it at that time, or if it's 5 months down the road. I'm just putting it out there that it seems like we're rushing something, and my feeling around the table is that the most people that spoke to it are feeling that it came back really too high.
Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Deputy. Through you to the Director, I guess, Public Works. So if we put this out into budget, would that give us time to maybe see if we could get some funding from the province to help support this? Or is that like it's out of the question altogether?
Anything's worth a try. We could certainly ask. But you know, my experience would be, you know, this is a tender project. Nothing I'm aware of as far as provincial funding. I don't think any federal funding may, you know, what would meet for federal for a street roundabout traffic improvement intersection. So within a month, my opinion would be there probably wouldn't be much success.
Okay.
Finding anything within a month.
All right, thanks.
Councillor Hart.
Through you, Chair. As councillors, we catch a lot of heat on the street from not getting things done. This is an intersection that something needs to be done with. I would be supporting a set of traffic lights here, and I would like to move forward with that. And the connection as well to King Street. Just putting that out there. That's what my opinion is, to set of lights and connect it to King Street. And,
But that's not what we're talking about right now. We're talking about the roundabout.
yeah.
So we gotta keep it on track.
Yep.
Councillor Smith.
I agree with Councillor Sherman. Feeling around the table was that we can't afford it. It's 5.3 million for one intersection. And it's only going to be, I don't know, a year, 2, 3 years before we have to start looking at the intersections on King Street. Isn't there intersections there where the 14 meets King Street and where College Road meets King Street?
So through your chair, that was part of the infrastructure needs assessment. The Chester Road and the College Road didn't identify any requirement at this point, and I think they projected, again, I'd have to look at the study, about, you know, out to 10 years. So They said at some point they may, but we're not there yet. But you know, if that's 3 or 4 years, depending on the development, certainly, yeah, we may be looking at other intersections for sure.
In any case, it's though like it's $5 million for one intersection. I just can't see it with a annual budget of around 30 million. It just seems like it's just way too much money for one small project. It's not like a project that affects like the mass of the population, like a water tower. This is one that can be, you know, you can have a substitute in there. You can have traffic lights in there that will work almost as well. It may not move traffic as fast, but traffic lights have other benefits. You know, they have a stop in traffic so pedestrians can cross. Right. And it's a highly used crossing spot. Like the kids from going to school are using that flashing crosswalk all the time. So, and plus we have all the people that are living in the crossing, and we're trying to promote active transportation. And we have our major sports facility on the other side of the road and our major shopping on the other side of the road. So, and we get a lot of foot traffic in that area. So traffic lights aren't, you know, they're not as bad as, you know, some people make them out to be. I mean, the roundabouts do move traffic faster, but, you know, signals do have advantages as well. So, and plus signals, you know, if you have any impairments, like if you're hearing impaired or sight impaired, signals help you, whereas roundabouts don't. Right? Roundabouts, it depends on the pedestrian to see if the traffic is stopped. Whereas signals, you know the traffic stopped. So myself, given the cost, you know, I couldn't support a roundabout, even if it came to the budget process or if it was here. Like, it's just too much money.
I think Councilor Merlo was ahead of me, but
Councilor
it's
Merlo,
up to
like I
you.
said.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you, Deputy. I'll just say quickly that the fact that I agreed to withdraw the motion doesn't mean that I don't support a roundabout. The cost and the lack of bidding is a concern. I think that Councillor Scott McLean made a really good point. We've made this point before with regards to the provincial government and any possible responsibility that they might have for this area. Yes, they are town roads, but there are regional facilities located in that area that we had nothing to do with. They were put there by the province, and anybody could have guessed at that time what was going to be happening with the surrounding area. There was already development starting to occur, and it's only grown since then. I think it would make a lot of sense for us to bring that up to the province. The fact that these regional facilities are located there. The safest way to proceed is with a roundabout. We talked about power outages and mass events that could happen. In a power outage, your lights are going to cause more confusion than any roundabout ever will. I still think the roundabout's the way to go. The cost is more than I want to see us spending, but this seems to be a project that we should be able to partner with other levels of government, in particular the province in this case. There are regional facilities that are the biggest reason why we need this.
Councilor Martin?
Yeah, thank you, Deputy. I just want to
Sorry.
concur with what. Oh, you can go ahead if you.
No,
want.
you were on before him.
I won't be as long. I won't be as long.
1/8 of a second.
I just want to concur with what Councillor Smith said. Certainly agree 100%. Very well spoken. Very, very well said. I truly believe when we open the other end up, streetlights are going to work just fine. I'd be ready to put that motion back on and defeat it myself tonight. And then another motion for streetlights. And it's not very often I go against recommendations and you know that, but truly, truly believe we'll be able to get that road open, streetlights up, probably for a cheaper price than what we're going to pay when this project's completely done. So just my thoughts, but appreciate your comments, Councillor Smith, and I completely agree.
Councillor Ivey, sorry.
so thank you. One question, and then the motion will go back up.
Okay.
Because we've talked about this. I think this is one of the times when we really, when we did Wentworth Road and the repave, and did we was it completely done through you, Chair to Director Richard? Did we completely do Wentworth Road in 2010-ish or thereabouts when it got repaved and redone, or did we only do, how far did we go with that? Because there is the water component that you're touching on here. Can you just tell us what we did with that 10, 15 years ago, Director Richard? Are you?
Sure. So Wentworth Road was done in 3 phases. I think phase 1 was the coal drive piece, and then phase 2 was along by the hospital, and then phase 3 was the tail end by O'Brien Street, but I may be off in that order because it was some time ago. And part of that, before my time as director, it was decided that, again, it came down to price. That was a very, large capital project, the Wentworth Road corridor. It was decided that, the water main wasn't to be replaced. So again, decision of the day, but we're paying for that now. You've all seen the amount of water main breaks along that section of road. So that's why, when we do intersections or intersection improvements, we dig up the intersection. We want to do it once, replace all the infrastructure that's needed. So we're not going back and carrying up a street that's been recently done. So, but that was over 3 projects, paved right from O'Brien Street right through to Coal Drive.
Okay, thank you very much for the added information on that. I think that's worth it. And, on the chance that when that motion first went up, we weren't quite ready for it, but I got to believe that we are now. And barring any objection to that, I'm putting the motion back on the floor.
Would you like to read it again, please?
Yep,
No.
there is not. He was wanting to that, but I think we shared the mic back and forth, and he may jump in on that. We'll see. But council approve and award the tender, WHRM PW 24-03 for construction of the Paysan Drive Wentworth Road roundabout to the low compliant bidder Dexter Construction for the tendered price of $4,274,980 plus applicable taxes. And council also approves a construction contingency of 15%, $641,247, and the cost for overhead utility relocation for a total construction estimated cost of $5,116,227 plus applicable taxes.
Moved by Counselor Ivy. Seconder? Second by Counselor Smith. Question's been called. Motion defeated. Somebody like to fetch the other two?
Before you do, before you grab them, Don. Can I just put another motion on the table?
For
Streetlights. What's that? The alternative. I'd so move that we get staff or ask staff to come back with a Class D estimate on installing streetlights at the intersection of Wentworth and Pezant.
second. Moved by Counselor Morton, second by Counselor Hart. Counselor Ivy?
One question, if I could, this may be a little bit across the line, but so we just defeated the motion on the roundabout. Will that automatically still come to council as we've seen occur on some occasions before, or are we done? Occasionally, we've seen motions defeated at committee of the whole still come to council. I just want to be clear about that. So, I mean, it's all right. We can still have
Maybe
to.
just for information, but it's committee of the whole is advisory. You are not advising to conduct a roundabout. You just defeated it.
Right.
So there'd be no decision at council. If it's there, it might be for information purposes, but there's no, no. There's no motion.
Okay. I just want to be clear about that because before we've seen them still come through for a second go at council. And I'm not wanting to complicate matters, but okay, thank you.
So before we vote, I have a question for Director Richard. You can speak first, though.
Yeah, just a clarification on the motion. For the Class D estimate, are you looking for preliminary design? Because we'll probably need some preliminary direction to do some preliminary work to get that Class D estimate. So.
Yes.
So I have a question for you. Jog your memory, when they done the work on Wentworth Road years ago, the intersection, Did they not run the wires for streetlights at that time, underground?
Not that intersection, Empire Lane going into Sobeys and Home Hardware. They did, but
Okay.
not this
I knew it was
intersection.
one, but it wasn't showing.
Yeah.
Okay. Motion on the floor. Is any more questions on it? Questions been called? Motion passed. Someone want to grab the other two, please? Yeah. Kathy's leaving? Kathy's leaving?
Yeah, I told him.
I don't blame you. I would have run a break. I would have run a break for her. I would have spoken right here. All right, council, we're back in, so we need a motion to continue or not.
So moved.
Move to continue or not. All right. Move by Councillor Morton, second by Councillor Sherman.
Question.
Any questions? Yes, question on the motion. Just so we're fire that up. It's been,
Are we on 11J?
Yes.
yeah. Push this button. Motion passed. I don't know where he went. I didn't see him. It was gone. Good. So just for the record, Councillor Mark McLean has left the meeting. Up next is Windsor Flood Water Study Phase 2 Recommendation Report, Director Richard.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So this is in preparation from the council direction to proceed with phase 2. So CBCL prepared the Windsor Stormwater Report and presented it to council in 2023. In January of 2024, council directed staff to proceed in an expedited fashion for next steps towards a solution for stormwater diversion and management, specifically for the residents along Stannis Street, Victoria, Gray, Monroe, Lower Wiley, Wagner's Court, and portions of Albert Street and Jermaine Crescent. CBCL did submit a proposal to move forward with stormwater solutions. It is necessary to move forward with preliminary engineering and design. This is required to identify conflicts, obstacles, and risks, basically to determine the practicality and constructability for each option. The scope of work will include generating plan and profile drawings used to identify upstream system connection locations to allow for expansion of the system, identify known existing utilities that would be impacted, identify if private property will be impacted and the extent, and generate a Class C estimate. So there's several parts. One is to review the existing data from the stormwater study that was done and what additional data is required. Evaluate options and identify up to 3 options that can move forward to concept development. Develop short list of options. Pre-design report will be done and detailed and explain the options with a review meeting to discuss, and a follow-up presentation will be made to council. CBCL proposes to do this phase 2 for an estimated fee of $240,500. That is just a few highlights of the report. I'm willing to answer any questions.
Questions for Director Richard on this one?
Yeah, thank you. So from a costing standpoint, the amount that they're quoting is, and I can't remember the exact number now, that was incorporated into the current year's fiscal budget, whether it was 200 or 250, I can't recall. Is that what we're relying upon for this, or will this require approval through the budget process this year to get this on track? And the reason I'm asking the question is from a timeliness standpoint, although since we started this exercise, significantly off track time-wise from 3 years ago. I don't mean to say that to be, but what are we looking at on the timing of the budgetary aspect of this? Is this going to be a new budget item, or are we going to carry forward last year's number? And
So projections of the coming budget, we have allocated a fair bit of capital and operations towards stormwater management. This just being a piece, knowing that the sensitivity of the issue, trying to get timing, a fair bit has been allocated within the next 2 to 3 years within this budget, along with projections for potential construction given council's direction. So this has been forecasted in the upcoming budget. I know you haven't seen that yet, but this is just the piece that regardless of if we proceed with phase 2, there is allocation in the upcoming budget for something for stormwater design for this area of town.
okay. And I think I'll leave it. I'll support getting the study moving, and we'll deal with the other aspects, I guess, later. Again, I go back to the immediacy of the people that are struggling with this on a regular basis. I don't need to say anymore. I will be coming back. We'll be coming back in 2 weeks' time with the notations around Peter Moore's suggestion, which I think has merit, and we'll see where that goes. Thank you.
Merit?
Yeah, through you, Chair, to Director Richard. So do we have a rough timeline on when this will come back? I know it's hard to pinpoint, but it says 6 to 8 months.
So
but,
6 to 8 months is what CBCL is projecting to have this, this in front of you as far as the options, the next stage. They do realize, they have a lot invested, a lot of time and modeling and data. They realize it's not an easy design. There's a lot of different moving parts, and to come up with some solutions and looking at short-term solutions that we can get the most stormwater outside of that area as quickly as possible for a reasonable amount of money that's able to be feasible for the cost of the taxpayers. So.
that was my next question on that, on actual actionable items. If we get things put back as they're $50 million or $150 million, it's not what I'd be interested in, like actual things that we could do within reason that.
And this is the next step to refine that, like we just discussed one project that, escalated. We come in at a low amount, but as you design these things and get the complexity, you refine that cost. So it could be higher, it could be lower based on what the early projections are, but we need that data. We need to know what the obstacles are. We need to know what the topography is, how deep, how long, how big. So, and these options hopefully will present something that's actually feasible to undertake.
There's one more question, Chair, if I could. I was meant to. I wanted to ask it through an earlier item, but I forgot. But do we still have a number on how many properties are affected within our serviced areas from flooding? When we do have a flood event, do we actually know how many properties? Because I'm trying to reconcile the cost and then and then how many, and are there better measures that we could do to address, let's say there are 28 properties or 32, or I'm just trying to reconcile just.
So we have done some numbers, and it's kind of a sliding scale based on the intensity of the storm, and the properties go up as the climate change projection goes up. So the number of properties now that are affected, climate projections to 2090 are certainly more, because the impacts if we do nothing are certainly going to be more properties. So we have those numbers. We still do have the federal funding application in that kind of alluded to some of those numbers. Right now, based on climate, not with climate change, we're in the, 40 to 45 residents that could be impacted, given the type of storm that we had this past July. So in this Windsor area, so.
Yeah. So we definitely, council, we definitely have a lot invested in this to this point, and I would equally put it back on our residents by saying they have, I would say, equally invested similar amounts on their end as well on this one for people who are affected. So yeah, thank you.
Councilor Harvey?
Yeah, thank you. My final comment or two, and one of them sort of dovetails with the mayor's. It goes to what was in the initial report, and as we tried to filter those down, it's even touched on. And this one has to do with any kind of rehabilitation of Cannibal Creek. And in other words, it's still trying to make it that it's functional and so on, which was kind of a combination of a couple of the options that was in that report. And to my way of thinking, the characteristics that surround that, given its proximity to existing residences and all that goes with that, and the creek running underneath other properties and the like, just doesn't make that in anywhere near, I guess, a realistic option that we would end up looking at. The cost of doing that work seems to me would far exceed any benefit in trying to, that we almost end up looking at trying to do parallel or new main trunk sewers, piping there. Director Sheridan, you can tell me that I'm wrong or I'm not thinking right, but I know that that's in there as an option. It occurs to me that that's one that's easy to try and filter away, but can you?
Yeah, sure. And if I, correct me if I don't have your full, but Cannibal Creek, certainly a portion of it doesn't go away. I don't know if you were on council, but when I became a director in 2015, Cannibal Creek was part of my discussions. Cannibal Creek still needs to be, a portion of it, essentially from Gray Street through to Water Street, needs to be replaced. It's concrete, fairly updated through Elmcroft Park through Monroe Street. But once you get past that, Cannibal Creek does need to be replaced. We thought, yeah, just twin Cannibal Creek and be done with it initially, but the corridor, the width, the amount of space and the size to meet climate change projections, there's just physically not enough room based on the study to be able to twin Cannibal Creek. So now we're looking at other options, Albert Street, or a separate storm sewer down Stannis Street. So those are some of the options that we need to dive deeper with this next phase of a detailed design. So not sure if that answers your question, but Cannibal Creek certainly doesn't go away, but there's issues with just the amount of space we have in that current corridor.
I think we're both in the same park, and that answers my question. And then the other item goes to the numbers, and it's that it's fine that we're looking at the broader, bigger whole area that has flooding components attached to it, but there's only certain areas that are actually flooding at the present time where there's properties being impacted and damaged with any of the significant storms that we have, and that our focus be at the front end on those areas where it's happening now, that we can defer and delay till tomorrow, which I hate to say, but some of those other areas that aren't experiencing this kind of flooding. So I'm good. Thank you very much. That's just a comment.
Councilor Murray?
Yeah, yeah, lots of good discussion on this. I would be prepared to make this motion, though, to move this forward. And I would move the council approves the proposal from CBCL for the Windsor Flood Study Phase 2 for the estimated amount of $240,500 plus applicable taxes.
Moved by Councilor Murray, second by Councilor Smith. Any questions on the motion? Question's been called. Motion passed. Up next, Terrain Crescent Stormwater System request from Direction Report, Director Richard.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So this is the kind of second piece of the stormwater. Again, council direction was for a site-specific solution. And we're more or less engaged staff in a dedicated effort to operationally address and engineer a solution to resolve the ongoing flood issues near Tremaine Crescent through to Tregarthic Marsh. So staff did engage CBCL to complete a stormwater assessment and a crossing designed to reduce flood risk at the cross culvert near civic number 335 Tremaine Crescent in Windsor. The house located at Civic 335 Tremaine Crescent, as well as the surrounding properties, are low-lying. Foundations are at or near the bottom of the existing drainage ditch. Upgrading the municipal stormwater system is fully unlikely to fully address the reported residential flooding at this location, as there are drain tiles that discharge to the bottom of this ditch. And they will be submerged when water is present in the ditch, which may result in stormwater lateral backup into residential basements. So the design picked was a 1 in 100-year design event, accounting for climate change projections to 2090. The proposed design calls for a skewed concrete box culvert, 27 meters long, 2.7 meters wide, and 0.6 meters tall. There will be existing infrastructure that will need to be relocated, including a section of water main, service laterals, and potentially overhead utilities. So the Class B opinion of probable construction cost is coming in at $447,400 plus HST. So this price does not include potential easements or land purchases or downstream ditching work east of this box culvert. Those ditching and improvements downstream of this is something that we certainly can undertake in-house, and we have allocated those operational costs in our 2024-25 budget. So staff is seeking direction on next steps from council to proceed. Staff could have CBCL finalize the design as per the attached documents and have the project tendered for construction, or council could direct staff to proceed with other alternatives. And those alternatives there, I won't read them, but they're in bullet form, just for some suggestions for council that may wish to consider. And we did highlight one of the, there is other considerations for flood risk mitigation that's outlined in the CBCL document. And I did attach them to this report too. So at this point, we are looking for, just given the price of this, construction for this area, we were just, an information report and looking for council's direction on which way for staff, you'd like staff to proceed.
Questions for Todd on this one? Councilor,
Yeah, just a couple comments to start with, and then I'll see what I'll start with a couple of comments. The report almost reads as if this is a singular property fix, and it's not. The identification of the location of the area that, as I described when we spoke about this last September, is the area where I've described as our infrastructure is failing. It's failing in an area where we aren't taking water away that's being delivered to where you've got a unique name on that grilled culvert that we have there, Todd, that comes off the drainage ditch beside the property. It shows up in the cover of the CBCL illustration, report. But it's not just about this one property. It's about this property, the one across the street, and the two next door more frequently than some of the others. But there is other flooding going on here. It's just that this location is one where we've got a more vocal advocate for trying to get a fix in place. And so I think it's important to point that out, because we aren't looking to fix a single property at this price. And I just want us all to think about that when we look at this. The problem exists here, and without getting further afield on this, but even when we looked at the report that came back from CBCL at the meeting in the town hall in Windsor back in October and so on, this area still wasn't designated as being a flood area, but it most certainly is and has been for many years. And equally, the other end of Tremaine, back by where the Centennial Apartments are, that had flooded completely through several of the storms. We're not dealing with that. That's another piece on the other side of the hill of the infrastructure here, where the stormwater flows down each end of the street. But for this area has been struggling with this for far too long. And in fact, just to say that when we brought that first report forward, or motion that first came forward for the study on the drainage areas within Windsor, we added Tremaine Crescent and all the streets in there, and it got left out. And we said, we'll bring them back another report, and it got left out. We never got a report on Tremaine back in 2021. So this came forward a year ago, September, because the matter was still unresolved And even when we got our master floodwater report in December, Tremaine's not in there. We did find out then that CBCL was taking on the initiative and the work had started in November to work on this. But this has also been a long, long slug. It's my opinion that the recommendation being brought forward should proceed and proceed in a fashion that is consistent with what will ultimately be a bigger picture as part of this bigger floodwater study that we're doing here. But this aspect of it, in my mind, absolutely needs to proceed. Open other comments from other counselors, and then we'll see if we can get a motion here.
Counselor Smith?
Thank you, Chair. Looking at bullet number 2. This is to drain the water towards Martock Marsh. That, it doesn't look like a very simple solution. It looks like a very expensive solution. I wonder, is it? It was under the alternative, says bullet number 2.
So
It's
through you,
under
Deputy
capital
Mayor.
first,
So yeah, so that's, one alternative. We could, and we are looking at that now. So we're doing College Road. And so we're taking a closer look at the potential to take some of the east side ditches on King Street and direct them to College Road under the current capital project. Fairly simple. Is this done now or is it done when we do the King Street? Because that intersection, we would like to actually lower the profile of King Street a bit. So to make the approach angle from College Road to King a lot easier. So discussions with their consulting engineers on the College Road, which is EXP. They're looking at designing, having catch basins that can connect to College Road from King Street. So in doing so, we'll be taking some of the water that's currently directed towards Tremaine Crescent and putting it through the College Road system towards the Martock Marsh. So
I see. So it's not actually Tremaine Crescent that's going in that direction. It's the water that's.
some from King Street on the east side of King Street.
Now,
yes.
now I understand. Yeah. Okay.
So, and then the other projects would be, in our capital project, we have O'Brien and King Street. Some of the water that's directed towards Tremaine Crescent comes off of the one-way piece on King Street, more or less from Wilson Street down. So some does end up there. So if we, had a O'Brien Street project, which would be curb gutter, we're collecting all the street water. So it's not going to get to that portion. Our hopes would be to direct that further down to not have the effect that it does now on that those civic addresses near Tremaine Crescent. So kind of redirect that water. Same with Quinn's flooring. A lot of that, just the topography, a lot of that water runs off and in towards that drainage ditch. So we had curb gutter, catch basins, road profiles. It was graded properly. We would redirect that.
So
it's
does
not
this water naturally go towards Martock Marsh?
So
Would it-
water that's impacting this Tremaine Crescent?
The water
No.
that you're talking about running in that direction, would it
All
naturally?
all
go
those
there?
areas I talked about from Wilson down, east part of King Street, essentially from O'Brien Street through to the Hughes property, are the catchment area for 335 Tremaine Crescent. So we would like to redirect some of that to Martock Marsh. We're going to redirect some of that downstream of the current outlet of the cross culvert at Tremaine Crescent. So not impacting the residents that have the issues with the water backing up.
Would there be any impacts to anything on the Martock Marsh?
So certainly we looked at that. The Martock Marsh, it does have its limitations, but that the design for that stormwater system is capable of taking more water. So we did look at that, but the component would be fairly small overall, because most of the water in that King Street ditch does lay there. But it does ultimately end up currently in the Tremaine Crescent side of when it flows. So.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor?
Yeah, I was thinking along the same lines as Councillor Smith, and also want to touch on a couple of things Councillor Ivy was on to as well. Are we just taking the issue from one street and put it on another area, or are we confident the Martock Marsh can handle if that was the way council was to proceed?
So it all depends on the type of weather event and, We are always influenced by tide cycles. That's when usually we have the most issues. Same thing with the Martok Marsh, not so much because it's not really tide influence because it's just the Avon River runs up to the Burgo Creek and then ultimately to the Avon River. So that system, is not as impacted by the tide cycle. Now the Tregothic Marsh side, severely impacted by the tide cycle. So that's kind of alluded to in the report. If we have high tides and severe rain, no matter how big that cross culvert is, if the water is backing up, it's just it has nowhere to go until the tide releases. So that is a concern. So we can take some of that water and direct it to the Martok Marsh side where it's not heavily as influenced by the tide. Certainly that's the approach we're looking at.
Again, I've struggled with this report myself. I, and I appreciate the work that's gone into it. There's a lot of detail in there. There's alternatives, which I always I like. I enjoy seeing the alternatives. It's just there's so many. It's hard to reconcile which is the best way to go. On my end, I would have preferred a recommendation that would have said, as staff's expert opinion, we believe this is the best bang for the buck to help address the issue. I kind of got the feeling that doing the box culvert, the diagonal box culvert, was inefficient for the amount of money, as per the report, to address a singular issue. I don't think it's a singular issue for one residential property or two residential properties. But again, it just makes me start questioning what the best way forward is, and is that expediting the King and O'Brien projects as projects we have already in the capital plan. Is that the better option for council as opposed to looking at this box culvert? I just don't know at this point. I'm a little conflicted on my end.
Through you, Deputy Mayor. So, not really, we could come out with staff's opinion is, we do have our capital plan. King Street is on there for a reason. O'Brien Street is on there for a reason. And part of those reasons is for stormwater management. Certainly if we have an improved stormwater management plan to redirect some of this water, that certainly would be, staff's suggestion. That capital plan is in place, for a reason. And some of those reasons are for that stormwater management. But, to be perfectly clear, we are influenced. We have houses built in marsh bodies. Certainly probably wouldn't be allowed today. So we're influenced by that tide component. So that is a much bigger, harder solution to fix. How do we prevent, or is it major pumps? And that was part of the discussion in the stormwater study. That was, we have to pump this water more or less over the dikes to lower that tidal influence, because once the tidal gates close, that water just keeps on building up in the marsh bodies until the tide goes in. So that's always we can do this, and that's why we base it on 100-year event, because some of these major issues related to the Tremaine Crescent residents were these big, heavy storms. Water laying in that ditch. Certainly there was no, water overtopping into windows, in through doors, into the residence. Yes, there was standing water in the ditch. For us to alleviate that from any standing water without the tidal influence, that's why the design is for 101 and 100-year event. Because currently with the, those are based on the current culvert crossing is 1 and 5 year. So that's normally what we would design a street for, 1 and 5. But this is a large box culvert to alleviate that standing water, and it has to be based on a 100-year event. Because the 1 and 5, not too many issues. Yeah, there's some standing water, but it's not at the point where it builds up to a certain point, and the hydrostatic pressure is the more water that goes up, the more pressure, and it's getting inside the basement. And that's why we did put the alternatives there. It is staff's suggestion that there are some responsibilities on the property owner to waterproof the basement, if that's sump pump, so that's inside or outside, to prevent that water from getting inside the basement. And that's why we needed to put it in the report. We put this in, spend, upwards of $450,000. There's no guarantee that these property owners will not get water in their basement. There's still that potential, a high potential that they'll still get water intrusion in their basement because it's getting in there now. We're not doing anything to their basement. We're just allowing the water to flow through there quickly and not build up as much. So just again, some staff highlights from our experience and consulting with the experts and engineers in the field.
Councilor Francis.
Thank you. Deputy Todd, I think you just answered my question, so I didn't get my light off, but just to go, so I too would have preferred direction, because I'm not an engineer, I'm not a water person, so but what you had just said is one of the better scenarios might be to redirect the capital project. Where this is a cost of the box culvert and it's not gonna fix, it's a large expense for a 1 in 100. I guess there's no other way to say that nicely, but is that what I'm understanding? And if we do redirect, maybe some education for residents to help themselves as well, to redirect some of this water away from their homes. Is that how I'm hearing that in the Coles Note version?
Yeah, essentially, our suggestion would be the indirect method of putting less water or eliminating any municipal water from ending up in this drainage ditch, because we know we are putting street water. Certainly, we don't like to do that. We have no control over, private properties, the way the topography is, backyards flowing into one property. That's a civil issue. We don't like to go there. But if we can eliminate our street water or our municipal stormwater component, that's certainly going to, be the indirect benefit of less water getting into this ditch. So we're not we're paying for a culvert based on a 1 in 100-year storm. That's a large box culvert, and that's why the cost is so high to construct it.
So to say it one more time. So the King and O'Brien would help alleviate that water from going into Tremaine and causing the flooding for, I don't want to say a couple, but homeowners, for homeowners.
Yeah, certainly if we'd redirect that water, that it's not getting into that ditch, the municipal component, there certainly would be less storm water getting into that ditch. So.
Okay. And redirecting it, I heard you say the marsh can take a little bit more, but there are concerns there. But if we move forward with the capital plan, do we have some assurance we're not going to flood somewhere else?
So essentially the water's going to end up where it goes. We could direct a small portion to the Martok Marsh where it doesn't go now. It ends up into the Dragothic Marsh. But we're not putting any less. We would put slightly less water into Dragothic Marsh by redirecting that downstream further, but it all needs to end up on more or less the other side of the railroad from Tremere Crescent, where it ends up into Dragothic Marsh and then ultimately Dragothic Creek and then through the Abateau to the St. Croix River.
Okay, because if I read this, if I go further into 3, if we give direction for the box culvert, then you're still looking would recommend receiving direction to obtain a service easement. So
yeah. So with that one, if council's direction was, yes, let's proceed with this construction tender for the box culvert. Our suggestion would be, we should probably obtain an easement, a service easement, because we're putting that much money for a 1 in 100-year box culvert. We theoretically could divert some more water to that to allow, the King Street. We'd probably allow the King Street to come to it. It's just, again, that's our suggestion. For us to maintain it, for spending that much money on the box culvert, we probably want to, because right now we have no authorization to go in there and do any work on that drainage ditch to make it, deeper or, ditch it. The homeowner does a great job of maintaining it. He has for several years, but we have no authorization to go in there on private property and do anything. We're spending this much money. Again, it's just staff suggestion that we should probably obtain a service easement to allow us to do work there, or, potentially pipe more water to that drainage corridor.
Okay, I think that's it for now. That's my two.
Councilor
I find it hard to believe that we would suggest we would actually pipe more water into that drainage corridor. Honestly, I couldn't begin to explain that to anybody as an outcome of ultimately taking the water that's coming off this established drainage ditch, which is carrying more water than it was ever intended to carry. Let's ignore what's coming down off Wilson, King, and O'Brien down the Quinn's flooring driveway that got paved over in the last couple of years, which means it's coming even quicker. There is no lip on that driveway at the top between the road base and the driveway that goes down, which even a lip along there, just would be enough to divert the water to keep it from going down, I believe. I'm not going to pretend to be an engineer here, but I know that that the reason we're still having this conversation now is because in the last 3 years, we haven't done anything to alleviate us taking this water, aside from, to be fair, when we discovered after we'd done the initial investigation on this in 2021, that the culvert wasn't clear as we originally thought, that it was collapsed, and it was collapsed with the carcass of, I think, a raccoon in one side. Right? That was in November of 2021. After we told them that, no, everything's okay. And that was because a resident discovered that the drainage ditch was completely empty on one side and completely filled on the other. So you're right. There should be a recommendation here. We shouldn't be parsing through and having to decide what's going to give us the best solution here. There's all kinds of things that we can look at, but we should have done something by now. This motion that triggered this shouldn't have been required. Just like the phase 2 shouldn't have been required. I don't want to, it's late, and so maybe I'm getting a little bit irritable. But the reality is that this needs to be resolved, and it doesn't matter what I shouldn't say it so definitively. I don't believe it would matter what we do up on O'Brien and King. The culvert on Tremaine is still going to need to be able to handle and carry more water than it can take today, because the water comes down that side of the street through an underground pipe system, and it's coming down on the other side of the street in open culverts that aren't connected, which causes the water to flow down and leak into the property behind, which is like a lake for those people. So look, folks, I don't pretend to be able to put a weighting on each of these, but the primary design that we have here is the box culvert. We don't want to vote for that, and we don't have, but these folks this area deserves a solution. It's not a one resident situation here. Excuse my tone, but I'm prepared to put a motion forward and see where it goes. Is there any more?
There's 2 more lights.
Okay, I'll let the lights go.
Mayor?
John was first. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Chair. What was my question? Oh, okay. The box culvert and the capital work that was going to happen on King Street, right? With diverting the water to the marsh, to the Martock Marsh. Which of those would happen first? Like if you were going to get the go ahead to do one or the other, one's a capital project for 25, 26. How long would the box culvert take to engineer and install?
So the box culvert essentially is engineered. It's detailed, engineered, it's ready to go to tender. So if the motion's made tonight to proceed with that, that's ready to tender. The only thing hasn't been prepared is the tender documents, I believe. So that's ready to go. The King Street is, we'd require detailed design for King Street and O'Brien Street.
So the box culvert that goes to tender, would it be this year?
Certainly could be. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And the regular stormwater or storm sewers from King Street, that travels towards downtown, right?
No.
No?
No. goes out through Chugothic Marsh. King Street, more or less King Street from,
I guess so. O'Brien.
so O'Brien. So a
Yeah.
portion of O'Brien would go Chugothic Creek. The other part would go Cannibal Creek. Essentially, the break point would be around Wentworth Road, you know, maybe St. John Street or something, maybe a break
Okay.
point.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
All right.
Yeah, just a few things, Chair. Director Richard, you said there wouldn't be a noticeable difference in the end result doing a bulks culvert down on Tremaine as right now. Did I, is that what I heard, or?
I'm not sure what you heard, what I. In the report, what I
No,
stated
no,
right in the
no,
report.
as I forget whose question it was, but was it your
Debbie's.
question? Yeah, Councillor Ferris. Yeah, no,
think
just
For one
so
and a-
it's been a late night so far. I just wasn't sure if I heard that. I was making notes and then I heard the comment. I just didn't pick up on it, but so if council was to proceed with the box culvert on Tremaine for the 1 in 100, it wouldn't make a noticeable difference on the flow of water going through, or?
No, it would make quite a difference based on a 1 in 100 year storm without the tidal influence. So if it was just inland rain, a heavy rainstorm at low tide, there's going to be that box culvert constructed for a 1 in 100 year storm. There should be absolutely no backing up of water on the private properties. As it's a large box culvert, it's going to get through. Now, if there's a tidal influence and water's backed up, that's a different story. So we may even want to, you know, based on this, there may be even a flapper valve on the other end of the box culvert to prevent, you know, tidal water or, you know, backing, it's not tidal water, it's not salt water, it's just the fresh water can't get out because the tide's in and the Abateau is closed. So that's another option that we may want to consider too, having so it's not backing up. So everything can get out, but it just, but then once you have the flapper valve, again, it can't go anywhere. So that's just the influence of high tides. But certainly the 1 in 100 year box culvert is certainly going to improve the scenario if we don't have that tidal influence.
And then we'd want to redirect more water down through there, or just I'm just trying to get it all in my mind.
Yeah, and
because I'm trying to figure out the best way to
yeah, it is
proceed.
getting late and I should choose my words, you know, not intentionally direct more water. It's just able to have access to that drainage corridor because, you know, there is a certain portion from the King Street East ditch, certainly from the Hughes property towards Quinn's Flooring that ends up in that drainage corridor. If again, staff suggestion, if we're spending 447,000, we may not direct that water towards the Murtock Marsh. We would probably maintain that same amount of water. Because it's cost the further away you are from a discharge point, the more expensive it gets. The design of King Street may allow for some street water to go through there, but we would need that service easement or ownership to be able to do that. Right now, we don't.
So this may complement a future project on King and O'Brien
Yes,
and
it
and
could.
allow for more efficiency. That's what I'm trying to I'm trying to reconcile for
Yes,
myself.
yeah, no, that's good wording.
I know through all the town halls we've had council lately, people want an efficient use of their tax dollars. They want no knee jerk reactions from council, and that's I'm just trying to get to it on this one. So with those comments, it's now changed my opinion going the other way on this. This is a project we should do now. So
and just on that for clarity, it's not just one property, it's several properties.
It's several
for
now,
us to
yeah.
get through to King Street. So there'd be some-
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Councilor Sherman.
So, yeah, it is getting late, but just, so this really is like just one piece of the puzzle that we're putting this in, then we can add and add and add, and the whole process is gonna make it all better 5 years down the road or whatever. Like this is like a stepping stone is what you're referring to as,
To be clear, this would be a small stepping stone.
but a step towards the end goal, I guess.
Yeah, if we could, if we could secure this easement to be able to utilize this drainage corridor for municipal purposes. Right now, we don't have, that may be expropriation because, you start asking people, hey, you're going to allow us to have a drainage easement for us to, for stormwater, most likely the answer is going to be no. There's going to be hesitation, certainly from the existing property owners. Because we've had those discussions before. So there is going to be hesitation. That's pretty much a given.
So I guess that leads me to one more question is, are we putting the cart before the horse? Like if we approve this and then they say, no, you're not going to be able to maintain the storm drain or anything like that, would it affect the project, the efficiency of the project?
Yeah, we certainly, haven't approached that as far as design. This is theoretical. Part of the suggestions would be for us to look at that. Will it work? It should work. It certainly should, but, and then there's always expropriation if that's a factor, if it's for municipal benefit and we can, that's because if property owners are hesitant, we could always go the expropriation route if needed. So.
Not sure who was on first. Debbie?
Through you, I'm just gonna throw a suggestion out there. It is getting late, so everyone's sort of going around, and two words there just made me think of this, and that was the should work. Maybe, maybe we need a little bit more information and come back maybe to find out if you can get that easement, if you do need that easement, and a little bit more information. The should work to approve 450,000 at this time of night at 11 o'clock makes me a little nervous with those words. So I just think maybe you have everything there. I guess maybe just come back with the recommendation that's going to fill everything with, if it's the box culvert, do we need the existing corridor to mean whatever, and the access if you can get it. Just so we have the whole package, so we're not approving something or sending it to council without having all the details. Just my thought.
Yeah, and just on that, Deputy Mayor, that was part of the bullet. If you do proceed, that would be the direction for staff to kind of, look at those, if it's those potentials. So we're not saying should work. Yeah, we're saying it will.
Mayor?
Yeah, I was gonna say very similar. I'd like to know about the easements before I proceed at this point. Just I do have one other question. I've been trying to get the answer for. I know we've discussed it in the past, but residential gutter systems, are they permitted to tie into the municipal drainage? Or I know sub pumps aren't allowed, but like gutter water.
No, we don't want gutter water going into our sanitary sewer
So
systems.
whenever we see a
It's
pipe
illegal.
going down into the grounds, there's a concern on our end.
Yeah, now some systems are designed, they have like a wet well, clear stone, and it kind of, percolates into the ground. Those are fine, but they're not allowed to be directly connected to our sanitary sewer systems. If we have a separate storm system, certainly, we would allow that, but not into the sanitary system.
Okay.
Councilor?
Yeah, my question was also on the easements, and it's not specified here. I'm not really sure based on the description of it being from King Street to Tremaine as to what that service corridor looks like. And maybe it's not something that we talk about here. I'm not sure. But if we do, I'm really curious as to what that path follows. But if it's not, if it's a separate conversation or you need to sort it out, then that's fine. Because in my mind, I could envisage this being an easement that runs down that driveway through the back of those yards and maybe that's one way, or maybe you're thinking something else. And again, you can just tell me it's not for open discussion, but if it's.
Yeah, very, very high level, it most likely won't be a straight line. It may be a bit of a curve or a zigzag to kind of get there, just the topography of the land. And we'd like to follow that natural topography. But again, it's very, very high level, very conceptual, very high level look that we talk, but certainly if that's council's direction, staff could certainly, take a deeper dive in that and look at what the land's needed, where it needs to direct to, and is it potential to flow from King Street to that ditch? So.
Thank you. And the last question I have is, have we ever considered the likes of a retention pond underneath the ball fields? Have we ever thought about if there was an area that we were to drain and, or hold and store and drain water out afterwards? Have we thought about that at all?
Yeah, we certainly have. We looked at most likely on the other side of the rail, to have like a stormwater retention pond. But but with the stormwater study kind of does touch on it. The best bang for the buck to have, if it's a stormwater retention pond, would be at the tail end, closer to the sewage treatment plant lagoons in that area, because then you're having an area for everyone. If you had it in the middle, you're not doing anything for the properties along Centennial Drive. So you need to push that as far towards the dike as possible. And then some type of mechanical means, which would be large pumps, to pump that out, because you need some type of, because it's at the grade, you need some type of mechanical device, because if you dug down below the grade, you're never going to get rid of the water. It's always going to hold water. So you need that mechanical means to move that water at that point. So.
Okay, thanks very much. So I believe I'm hearing that folks want to hear some more information brought back. So are we looking to defer this report to council in 2 weeks' time? And does Director Richard have sufficient input direction from this council to know what to bring back by way of additional information to us?
And we can go around and ask.
Just Deputy Mayor,
Yep.
by council, that's probably asking a lot for us to, because we'll probably need some consultants, engineering reviews. So not sure if we can have something back by April council. Maybe May committee of the whole, or even May council, depending on, we're going to need to do some work to be able to have that, not should work, that it will work. So we want to be, fairly certain that from conceptual engineering perspective, that we can provide that information. It'll take a bit more than 2 weeks.
And you're gonna work on the easements as well? Everybody go with that? Okay. Move down to M, Planning and Heritage Advisory Committee Citizen Member Appointment Recommendation Report, Clerk Snair.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, I'll be very brief. As previously indicated in the discussion with the report that Councillor Francis has brought forward, PAC has a current vacancy on it. So advertising was done. We received no interested applicants for the first round of advertising. So a second set of advertising was done. And we received 2 expressions of interest. Director Poirier reviewed both, and the recommendation is before council for consideration.
Like to read a recommendation?
Read it once it's up there. I don't have it.
I have it here.
I'll go for it.
I would move the council appoints John Briganti to the Planning and Heritage Advisory Committee for the remainder of the November 2022 to October 2024 term, which will fulfill the Windsor representative member vacancy.
Moved by Councilor Murray, second by Councilor Francis. Any questions? Questions? Be
Oh,
called. Whoa, sorry.
No, I do have a question. I think Councilor Briganti would be a fine representative on the committee, but my question is I thought that the Brigantis had moved out of Windsor. Are they back? Okay, so thank you. I wasn't aware. Thank you.
Question?
There it is.
Motion passed. Up next is public comment period. Would like to make a comment, go up to the microphone, maximum of 5 minutes per person. State your name, where you reside, please.
Hello, Amanda Gunfield. I live on Stannis Street. Council, if I may, I'd just like to take 2 minutes and just briefly summarize the report for viewers. Basically, the ask was CBCL was asked by WHRM to look at methods that will immediately divert stormwater away from the noted areas to prevent the short-term flooding. I guess everyone here knows what was proposed. It was not really consistent with council's request. It is not an immediate solution. We're talking 6 to 8 months to get a proposal, which if it goes as per, or to get a study, as if it goes as per the last time, we're looking at the better part of 2 years. So just, I guess, a gentle reminder to everybody, 6 months was almost 2 years. Plus about 4 more months to bring us to today. It comes with a $250,000 price tag, and assumably there'll be construction costs on top of that. Projected construction, assuming everything prior to this occurs within the time frame, is within or before the 2024-2025 construction season. So hypothetically, we're now talking the end of 2025. That's quite a long time. Quite a long time. And I know council is aware of this. I guess really this is more for public knowledge and just to summarize. So now we're looking at another 2 years. So I would like to take this opportunity to remind council, and only speaking from my property's perspective, that we have had multiple events, but on a biannual basis, just with the events that we've had, we're expecting everything remaining the same, 150, possibly more, $150,000 in damage every 2 years. 2 more years, $150,000 more damage. It's a lot of damage. So, multiply that by 3. So really, I guess what I'd like to summarize with is it's not reasonable. It's not reasonable for some homeowners to wait 2 more years. And I guess I just like to leave you with that thought. I don't have 2 more years. I suspect there are others in my community who don't have 2 more years. And really, it's not fair to us as homeowners to have to shoulder the financial or emotional burden of any more of these events. I realize right now this is out of council's hands, but I would like to leave you with that, perhaps to think about over the next few weeks. I don't have 2 more years. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Jason Hart. I was asked by Steve Hart to speak with council a little bit on his behalf. He couldn't be here tonight. You'll notice in your council package tonight, there was a request from Steve Hart for the residents of Upper Vaughan, Lower Vaughan, and Mill section. And I won't go through the whole thing. I'm sure you can read just as well for yourself. But the gist of the request was, should the Bear Lake project pass through first reading and some point in between there and second reading, the residents really need some funding for some legal staff, legal counsel to help them in these negotiations. They've got quite a tricky situation there. They've been offered compensation for the affected residents. Then they were told it was profit sharing, proximity payments. And all those things have different implications, and those folks shouldn't be asked to spend their own money to get that legal advice. But several of you counselors attended a public information meeting last night, and I hope you'll maybe share what you saw there with the other counselors. But in light of the events that transpired at last evening's public info session, the inconsistent testimony, outlandish allegations against the community, the proponent has validated the reasons for this request. and then some. That's all I got to say.
All right, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Lawrence, you want to come up? No, all right, so we're gonna end that part, so in camera, there's nothing. Next meeting date is April 23rd, council meeting at 6 PM. Looking for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councilor Morton. Seconded by Councilor Smith. All in favor? All opposed, motion moved. Thanks. All right.